Chapter 675. The appearance of Baiying Tower not only temporarily suppressed the Axe Spirit Treasure, but even Jiang Tianlin and the others were surprised that Lu Ping had such a wondrous spirit-nurturing treasure in his hands. However, although everyone secretly sighed at Lu Ping's good luck, no one was slow. Taoist Xuanquan's array formation kept shrinking the space in which the axe could fly, so as to concentrate more of the power of the array formation. Taoist Xianqan and Taoist Xuanqiu also rushed over, ready to join forces to suppress the axe spirit treasure after it broke through the suppression of Baiying Tower. Jiang Tianlin Laozu activated the Yingxi treasure mirror, and a cyan beam of light covered the axe spirit treasure. The spirit treasure, which was about to break free from the suppression of Baiying Tower, calmed down again. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's Dharma idol, Cyan Luan, flew over and circled around Baiying Tower. Jiang Tianlin Laozu stretched out a finger, and the Cyan Luan's wings folded. 108 green leaf magic treasures all flew up and fell towards the suppressed axe spirit treasure layer by layer, wrapping the entire spirit treasure tightly. The snow-white blade also disappeared, and the previously mighty and heavy spirit treasure was now only cumbersome. The spirit treasure tried its best to break free from the triple shackles of Baiying Tower, Yingxi treasure mirror, and Jiang Tianlin Laozu's natal magic treasure. A series of tremors caused Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin Laozu's faces to turn pale, and the true essence in their bodies poured out like flowing water towards the treasures in their hands. Jiang Tianlin Laozu controlled the Yingxi treasure mirror to cover the sky above the axe spirit treasure. The treasure mirror suddenly swelled up, and a light curtain formed on the mirror's surface, looking like a bright moon in midair. The cyan beam of light emitted by the Yingxi treasure mirror gradually shrank, and together with Baiying Tower, it was about to be absorbed into the Yingxi cave. At this time, the axe spirit treasure seemed to have realized that it was about to be suppressed, and an earth-shaking power suddenly burst out of the axe spirit treasure. The axe spirit treasure, which was originally pulled close by the light beam of the Yingxi treasure mirror, once again pulled away from the treasure mirror. At this time, Taoist Xianqan was finally able to mobilize all the power of the array formation and began to push the spirit treasure into the space light curtain of the Yingxi treasure mirror. Taoist Xianqan and Taoist Xuanqiu were somewhat unable to intervene. Seeing that the spirit treasure was about to be suppressed into the Yingxi treasure mirror, the axe spirit treasure wrapped in Jiang Tianlin Laozu's natal magic treasure burst out several attacks like the previous white blade lights. However, before these blade lights were shot out, Tianlin Laozu Jiang's spirit treasure, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's natal magic treasure, and only left behind a white light that flashed. Lu Ping watched carefully with his 3 pure true pupils. After a few flashes of white light, a few of Jiang Tianlin's 108 leaf-shaped mystic treasures had cracks on them. On the other hand, Jiang Tianlin's face turned even paler after the flashes of white light. Seeing that the spirit treasure was struggling again, and Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to have reached his limit at this time, Lu Ping did not hesitate to draw down a purple thunder from the sky. With the help of the thunder tribulation water, the power of the 7 treasures thunder gourd was even more violent. Although Lu Ping did not use it, but when the purple thunder fell, Lu Ping could clearly feel the fear of the axe spirit treasure. Lu Ping thought about it and understood. Spirit treasures were called spirit treasures after they had passed the thunder tribulation. Just like the Dharma manifestation cultivators, they had a natural fear of the thunder tribulation. After Lu Ping's great magical power of thunder, with the help of the thunder tribulation water, its power was far beyond ordinary great magical power. Although its power still could not cause harm to the spirit treasure itself had a natural fear of the thunder tribulation, allowing Jiang Tianlin Laozu to seize the opportunity. The light of the Yingxi treasure mirror soared and swallowed the axe spirit treasure together with the Baiying Tower. After the surface of the mirror calmed down, another picture appeared on the mirror. In the opposite direction of the wine tripod, another spirit treasure suppressed by Jiang Tianlin Laozu, a mountain slowly fell, pressing the axe spirit treasure on the top of the mountain. And Lu Ping's Baiying Tower, which was helping to suppress the spirit treasure, was about to fly out of the Yingxi treasure mirror, but the mountain that was suppressing the spirit treasure shook and was about to collapse. Lu Ping had no choice but to let the flying Baiyang Tower land on the mountain again, and the mountain that was originally shaking suddenly quieted down. Jiang Tianlin Laozi took back his Dharma idol, thought for a while, and said, "Nephew Lu, I'm afraid I'll have to borrow this magic weapon for a while. After returning to the sect, when celestial phenomenon Laozi makes a move, I'll return this magic weapon to you." Lu Ping nodded helplessly. In fact, if Jiang Tianlin Laozi used his 108 life source magic weapons to form a formation of 108 towering trees on the mountain, he could actually suppress the axe spirit treasure again. However, the 108 leaf-shaped magic weapons were Jiang Tianlin Laozi's life source magic weapons. Now, whether it was the central palace or the Ying Tian dojo, or even outside the dojo, they were all in a crisis. Jiang Tianlin Laozi was the #1 expert who protected everyone. Without the help of his life source magic weapons, Jiang Tianlin Laozi's strength would undoubtedly be greatly reduced. Another 2 hours had passed since everyone began to discuss how to capture the axe spirit treasure. Now, there was only half an hour left before the collapse of the dojo. During this time, no one knew what the other sects had gained, but everyone knew that no matter what the other sects had gained, Jinling's 2 spirit treasures were already the best among the sects, not to mention a medium-sized spirit stone vein, a magic weapon pill furnace, spirit forging pill recipe, 2 sets of heirloom cultivation methods, and several other sets of heirloom cultivation methods. In addition, Jinling had collected more than a dozen heaven-grade spirit treasures. Jiang Tianlin Laozi smiled and said, "This trip to the Ying Tian dojo can be said to be quite fruitful for our sect. Now that more than 4 hours have passed, I think the treasures in the central palace should have been collected by the cultivators of the various sections. Now that the dojo is about to collapse, we should first get out of the central palace." As soon as Jiang Tianlin Laozi's voice fell, the ground under everyone's feet shook. Under everyone's horrified gazes, the water in the stream rapidly dropped. Jiang Tianlin Laozi's divine sense swept over, and he exclaimed, "Not good, the space at the bottom of the stream has actually been split open by the spirit treasure. Previously, the dojo was embedded in the crack, so this grotto heaven could only remain intact. Now that we have pulled out the spirit treasure, this spatial crack has further expanded, and this grotto heaven is about to collapse in advance." As he spoke, the hills on both sides of the stream had already begun to collapse. Jiang Tianlin Laozi did not dare to tear open the space nearby to leave the central grotto heaven, so everyone could only return the way they came. Along the way, everyone found that the various restrictions in the grotto heaven were rapidly weakening. The range of their divine sense had gradually expanded, and the restrictions that forbade flying had also gradually lost their effectiveness. Everyone was overjoyed and began to fly. Their speed immediately increased, and at the same time, they used their divine sense to check their surroundings to see if they could find any treasures that they could conveniently take. However, the results were obviously disappointing. Along the way, everyone found many places where treasures were hidden. However, the restrictions inside had already been broken, and the treasures were empty. Just as Jiang Tianlin Laozi was looking for a relatively stable space to tear open the grotto heaven and return to the dojo, he saw Lu Ping suddenly stop. Jiang Tianlin Laozi frowned and said, "Martial nephew Lu, the space here is still a little close to the place where the collapse occurred. Now, we don't know what the Yingtian dojo has become. It's best for us to find a safe place to prevent other disasters from happening when we tear open the space." Lu Ping smiled mysteriously and said, "Martial uncles and martial uncles, please wait for a moment." After saying that, Lu Ping stomped on the ground, but the ground did not move. Lu Ping's expression immediately changed. Just as he was about to raise his foot and stomp again, he saw the ground not far away from everyone slowly bulge. Under everyone's surprised eyes, DeBeo climbed up from the ground with his face covered in dirt. When he saw Lu Ping, he was just about to speak, but when he opened his mouth, an arrow of blood shot out. Lu Ping hurriedly went forward to support DeBeo, who was on the verge of collapsing, and asked, "What happened?" DeBeo fiercely wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with a sad face, "Boss, I only took half of those 3 treasures. The rest were all taken by others. If it wasn't for DeBayo's quick reflexes, I'm afraid I would have been killed before I could even use the earth-burrowing technique. Lu Ping was shocked and blurted out, "You met a Dharma adept?" As soon as the words left his mouth, Lu Ping knew that he had asked the wrong question. If he had met a Dharma adept, no matter how good DeBayo's earth-burrowing technique was, he would not have been able to escape death. Indeed, DeBayo rolled his eyes and said, "If I had met Dharma adept Laozu, would I still be alive?" As he said this, he carefully glanced at Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. In his mind, only Jiang Tianlin and Laozu were the scariest to him. The others gave DeBayo a feeling that they were not as intimidating as Lu Ping. Hence, DeBayo was not afraid of them. It turned out that the 3 treasures that Lu Ping had discovered along the way had been covered with restrictive spells that DeBayo could not do anything about. Hence, he wanted to see if he could think of a way to get them from underground. Unexpectedly, right at this moment, the restrictions around these 3 treasures suddenly began to weaken. DeBao was overjoyed and took all of the treasures and one of the treasures. However, just as DeBayo excitedly began to collect the second treasure, a cultivator suddenly barged in. When he saw DeBayo, he was obviously stunned. When DeBayo realized that the person who had come was of a higher level than him, he slammed his head into the ground. Only then did he remember that DeBayo seemed to have seen the person before. It was a late core forging adept under the third bright Laozu of the Chongming sect, who was in alliance with Jinling. However, DeBayo was cautious by nature. Although he knew that the person who came was a friend and not an enemy, DeBayo was a demon cultivator after all. Who knew what kind of intentions the person had? Hence, he fled in the direction of the third treasure. It was a pity that DeBayo only managed to collect 1/3 of the second treasure. The rest fell into the hands of the Chongming sect cultivator. Unfortunately, DeBayo's luck was really bad today. Just as he entered the third treasure, the Chongming sect cultivator sensed the existence of the treasure and rushed over. At this moment, another cultivator rushed over. Both sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle, and the Chongming sect cultivator was defeated and had to retreat. DeBayo had just taken a few things when he was injured by another cultivator who barged in. If it were not for DeBayo's fast speed, he would have been killed. After listening to DeBayo's description, Lu Ping narrowed his eyes slightly. A murderous aura was brewing in his eyes. He spat out a few words. "Qianling sect, Lu Xiuhing, you're courting death." Chapter 676. DeBayo's injury made Lu Ping very angry. In his heart, he had already classified Lu Xiuhing as a dead man. However, the people of Jinling did not think that Lu Ping's words were exaggerated. With Lu Ping's current strength, he was indeed qualified to say such seemingly arrogant words. Jiang Tianlin Laozu heard Lu Ping's words and said lightly, "Qianling sect has received help from the Crystal Palace, and Lu Xiuhing is about to form a high-level gold core." Immortal Xian Su and the others were quite surprised that Lu Ping still had a backup plan like DeBayo. Originally, after they obtained the Axe Spirit treasure, they had no chance to search for other treasures. They did not expect that Lu Ping had already left such a foreshadowing. Although they had only obtained 1.5 of the 3 treasures, it was still a pleasant surprise for someone of DeBayo's cultivation level. On the other hand, DeBayo quickly tossed his grievances of being injured to the back of his mind. Stepping on Lu Ping's light, he began presenting his treasures to Lu Ping. "Boss, I don't think there's anything good in these 3 treasure chests. There aren't any heaven-grade spirit treasures like the ones we saw earlier. I only found some second-grade spirit materials, 1,000-year-old spirit herbs, a few low-grade earth-grade spirit items, a dozen mystical items, and a few ordinary mystic treasures." Boring. Immortal Xian Su and the others were speechless when they heard DeBayo's words. These things might not be useful in the eyes of late core forging realm cultivators, but it was absolutely impossible for them to not be tempted by these treasures. These things were things that Jinling urgently needed. "But," DeBayo dragged his tone, immediately attracting Immortal Xian Ji's attention again. Lu Ping knew DeBayo's temperament, so he was not surprised by this. Although a lot of the treasures in the second and third treasure troves were taken by the other two, I was the first to take the most important treasure in the third treasure trove. Looking at Debao's proud smile, Lu Ping sensibly asked, "Oh, what is that?" Seeing that Lu Ping was really interested, Debao suddenly became excited. He took out a brocade box from the storage pouch around his neck and handed it to Lu Ping, motioning for Lu Ping to open it. Lu Ping did not know what Debao was trying to do, but he still opened the brocade box in his hand. Looking at the item in the brocade box, Lu Ping's face showed a hint of surprise. Beside him, enlightened Master Xianchen also looked at the brocade box and exclaimed, "Ah, another spirit-nurturing treasure!" When the others heard this, they took the brocade box from Lu Ping's hand and looked at the item inside. Spirit-nurturing treasures were used by the majority of Transcendence Realm cultivators in the cultivation world. For late core forging realm cultivators, if they had 1 or 2 spirit-nurturing treasures to protect themselves, then they would often be existences that were not to be trifled with. Since Xunling entered the Yingtian dojo, although he had obtained 2 spirit-nurturing treasures, he did not obtain many spirit-nurturing treasures. In addition to Lu Ping's Baiying Tower, Immortal Xian Su's soft stab sword, Jiang Tianlin's Laozu obtained from breaking the 3-colored restriction area, and the 5-colored restriction area. In addition, when he broke the 6-colored restriction area, he found 7 spirit-nurturing treasures. Jinling obtained 3 of the weaker ones, while the remaining 4 were divided between the Chongning sect and the Jade Sword sect. When he broke the central palace, he found a few spirit-nurturing treasures that were at least 8 spirit-nurturing treasures. However, because Immortal Jiang Tianlin chose the Wine Cauldron, Magic Treasure Pill Cauldron, and half of the Spirit Forging Pill recipe, by Jinling's second round of selection, the spirit-nurturing treasures had already been divided among the cultivators of the various sections. After that, in the central grotto heaven, Jiang Tianlin's Laozu obtained another spirit-nurturing treasure. In total, Jinling had obtained 8 spirit-nurturing treasures, and now Jinling had obtained his 9th. If these 9 spirit-nurturing treasures were placed in the North Sea's cultivation world, it would cause a huge uproar. This showed how precious spirit-nurturing treasures were. No one expected that the spirit-seeking rat demon, who was only at the first layer of core forging, would be able to find a spirit-nurturing treasure. Patriarch Jiang Tianlin picked up a small bell from the brocade box and played with it in his hand. The clear ringing sound was like a stream of sweet spring water that flowed into everyone's divine sense, causing everyone to feel relaxed and happy. At the same time, they gained a preliminary understanding of the power of the small bell. The small bell was actually a spirit-nurturing magic treasure that was specifically made for the divine sense of cultivators. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu put the bell back into the brocade box, closed it, and handed it to Lu Ping. "This flower-protecting bell is the best among the 9 spirit-nurturing treasures. In terms of use, its value is second only to your Baiyang Pavilion." Lu Ping took out all the things Debao had obtained and gave most of them to Laozu. These were to be handed over to the sect. Debao grimaced in pain, but Lu Ping knew that Debao was a ghost. Lu Ping didn't believe that Debao didn't have some treasures on him. The mountains and plains in the distance kept collapsing. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu finally found a relatively stable place. Then, he flicked his sleeves and 2 huge elemental hands pulled at the space in front of everyone, creating a portal that led straight to the dojo. At that moment, the Yingtian dojo began to shake from time to time, as if it would collapse at any moment due to the hidden spatial cracks. After Jinling returned to the dojo from the Yingtian dojo, he found that 6 of the 9 great sects of the North Sea had already left the Yingtian dojo. Seeing Jinling come out, the cultivators from the various sects had different reactions, but all of them had a trace of envy and jealousy. Jinling was undoubtedly the biggest winner in this trip to the Yingtian dojo. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu didn't care at all. At that moment, the various sects still didn't know that Jinling had actually suppressed another spiritual treasure in the Yingtian dojo. Otherwise, Lu Ping was 70% sure that the various sects Laozu would join forces to deal with Jinling after hearing the news. Sanming Laozu had already left the central palace. When he saw Jinling and the others coming out, he immediately went forward. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu asked in a low voice. How's the situation? Sanming Laozu smiled bitterly and said, It's not good. It seems that the various sects don't dare to trust each other. Previously, after the Water Mist Pavilion and the Ocean Flame sect had a falling out, the Water Mist Pavilion was attacked by the Blue Sea sect in the central cave and lost a late core Forging Realm disciple. Foam Shidao secretly went to find trouble with the Lingu sect and seriously injured the late core Forging Realm disciple of the Lingu sect. After that, the Blue Sea sects Zhang Shi and Donghua arrived, and Foam Shidao retreated. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu listened silently for a moment and asked, Marshal Uncle Sanming, was the trip smooth? Sanming Laozu smiled bitterly and said, My luck is not bad, but I also fought with the people of the Flying Feather sect. In the end, both sides took a step back, and it was over. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu nodded and was about to say something, but he saw a crack suddenly appear in the sky above the already dilapidated central palace. Tong Sword Laozu held a sword in one hand and a late core Forging Realm cultivator in the other. He jumped out of the crack. Jiang Tianlin and Sanming Laozu saw that Tong Sword Laozu was acting strangely and hurriedly went to greet him. Tong Sword Laozu saw the two coming and threw the disciple in his hand to the side. He opened his mouth and spat a mouthful of dirty blood at his feet. Sanming Laozu was shocked and said, Brother Tong Sword, how are you? Tong Sword Laozu spat out the dirty blood in his mouth, and his complexion looked much better. He smiled and said, It's just a small injury, it's not a big deal. Jiang Tianlin's Laozu saw that Tong Sword Laozu's injury was caused by fighting with someone. He looked around and only Firmament Laozu of the Sea Flame sect had not returned, so he asked, Why did the Sea Flame sect have a conflict? Tong Sword Laozu smiled and said, That Firmament old ghost might not have an advantage. As soon as Tong Sword Laozu's voice fell, a loud noise was heard above the palace. A space passage was forcibly opened, and a gloomy Firmament Laozu jumped out of the passage with two injured disciples. His clothes were torn, obviously cut by Tong Sword Laozu's long sword. His gloomy face was pale, and there was no doubt that he did not have an advantage in the confrontation with Tong Sword Laozu. Seeing that all the sects had gathered, Jiang Tianlin Laozu said loudly, Everyone, the Yingtian dojo is about to collapse. I know that all the sects have their own plans, but I still want to remind everyone that the formation we set up outside the dojo could no longer stop the space oscillation when we broke the 5-colored forbidden area in the dojo. Now, I'm afraid that the secret of the Yingtian dojo is not only known by the sects of the North Sea. I'm afraid that the 3 sects in the Yingtian mountain range, or even more sects, already know about it. Jiang Tianlin Laozu paused and looked at all the sections. When Laozu saw that they did not refute what he said, it was obvious that they had already agreed with what he said, so he continued. The reason why these cultivators from the Middle Earth and the Northern Ice Plains did not enter the Yingtian dojo is probably because they are waiting for us to go out and catch us all in one fell swoop. At that time, everything we have obtained in the Yingtian dojo will belong to them. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words caused the hearts of all the sects to tremble. Perhaps Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words were exaggerated, but all the Laozu had to admit that it was very likely that they would be besieged by the cultivators from the Middle Earth sects after they went out. When Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that his goal had been achieved, he continued to speak of his plan. Therefore, in my opinion, after we go out later, we must not act on our own. Instead, we should advance and retreat together and work together to break the blockade of the cultivators from the various sects outside the dojo. After that, we will split up and break out. What does everyone think? Other than the Chongming sect and the Jade Sword sect, all the other sects remained silent. This suggestion came from Jiang Tianlin. If Laozu agreed to it, wouldn't it mean that all the sects would have to listen to Jinling's orders? Right at the moment when the situation was in a deadlock, a voice suddenly resounded. I think that Marshal Nephew Tianling's words are reasonable. After we leave the dojo, my Mistwater Pavilion is willing to break out together with Jinling. All the Laozus looked at Mistwater Pavilion's Mistwater Laozu with a surprised expression. She seemed to want to express some hidden meaning. Among them, Ocean Flame Sex Firmament Laozu was even angered to the point of trembling. Mistwater Pavilion is going to side with Jinling. Chapter 677. Outside the Yingtian Dojo, in the sky above the source of the Ying River, a few tall figures floated in midair. They looked down at the entrance of the Yingtian Dojo, which was protected by a large formation. Waves of spatial fluctuations could still be felt from there. After the collapse of the central grotto heaven, the entire Yingtian Dojo began to collapse. Changhe Laozu of the Ying River sect was also standing among these people, but at this moment, he was standing at the very back, and he looked very respectful. On his two sides were Wuji Laozu of the Yingshan sect and Yushan Laozu of the Daoyu sect. In addition, there were 3 early Dharma adepts, and their attire was similar to that of the mid-Dharma adept standing in front of the 2 adepts. They were probably from the same sect. One of the 2 leading adepts was the only mid-Dharma adept, and the other adept beside him who was chatting happily with him was only at the early Dharma stage. However, this early Dharma adept was clearly of a higher status than Changhe Laozu and the others behind him. In fact, when he was chatting with the mid-Dharma adept, it was the mid-Dharma adept who did most of the talking. The early Dharma adept was obviously much more reserved, only occasionally smiling, nodding, and occasionally exchanging a few words with the mid-Dharma adept. The mid-Dharma adept did not seem to be offended, and instead seemed to be even more interested in the conversation. At this moment, the mid-Dharma adept seemed to have thought of something, and he turned around to ask Changhe Laozu, who was behind him. Changhe, tell us roughly what happened that day. Although we were fully prepared, we still need to know our enemies well. Changhe Laozu acknowledged respectfully, and then he recounted how Changhe Laozu and the others had fought with Jiang Tianlin Laozu. He said, "That day, when the 3 of us were fighting with that person, there were other adepts of the same level watching us from all sides. They thought that they had done a good job, but they did not know that our sect really had a treasured mirror that we had obtained from the Ying Tian sect years ago. Through this mirror, we could detect the situation within a certain range of our surroundings. Their movements had already been seen by the 3 of us, and after that, the 3 of us discovered traces of many people. We discovered that there were about a dozen of them, and about 5 or 6 of them were at the Dharma stage, and it was highly likely that they were in cahoots. The mid-Dharma adept did not care about anything else, but when he heard that Changhe Laozu and the other 2 had actually joined forces to fight against the adept who had concealed his appearance, a cold glint flashed across his eyes. With a slightly serious expression, he asked, "Are you sure that the person who fought with the 3 of you was really at the early Dharma stage?" At most 3 or 4 of those 5 or 6 Dharma adepts will be killed. Changhe Laozu wanted to argue, but he heard Mr. Gu Cheng's tone change as he said to the early Dharma adept beside him, "However, if Brother Yuan helps us, it is not impossible for us to kill all 5 or 6 of them this time." The adept beside him smiled and said modestly, "Mr. Gu, you must be joking. Yuan is only an early Dharma adept. What can he do?" Although this person's words were modest, there was a hint of arrogance and confidence in his reservedness. Mr. Guchan laughed and said, "Brother Yuan is too modest. Who doesn't know that the adepts of the Yuan clan are difficult to defeat at the same level?" Just now, Changhe said that the early Dharma adept who fought against 3 of them alone, "Don't you want to meet him, Brother Yuan?" Mr. Gu Cheng's words seemed to have touched a chord in Yuan Lai's heart, but Yuan Lai would definitely not get involved in the fights between these small sects for the time being. Although the news of the Yingtian temple's appearance had shocked him, he had come to the border between the Central Plains and the Northern Ice Plains this time, and he had a secret mission to carry out for his clan. He could not lose the bigger picture because of a small gain. The most important thing about the Yingtian temple were some ancient records. These things were priceless treasures to other sects, but to the Yuan clan, they were nothing. Therefore Yuan Lai laughed and said, "Brother Gu, you flatter me. If what Brother Chang has said is true, that person really fought against 3 of us alone, then I am most likely not a match for him." Mr. Gu Chang was experienced and ruthless. Although he was puzzled by the sudden appearance of Yuan Lai, the adepts of the Yuan clan had always had an outstanding reputation in the world of practice, so he was not afraid that Yuan Lai might have any malicious intentions. He wholeheartedly wanted to rope in Yuan Lai as a helper because the reputation of the Yingtian temple was not small in the Central Plains. He needed to borrow the reputation of the Yuan clan to block off those who coveted it. Mr. Gu Chang was not a brainless person like Chang Halaozu. What he cared about was not how many things he could obtain from the Yingtian temple, but whether or not he could successfully occupy these things without incurring the interference of the more powerful sections. After all, the reputation of the Yingtian temple was not something that a medium-sized aristocratic family like the Gu family could swallow in one go. However, if he could rope in Yuan Lai, this matter would become much easier. The Yuan clan was the #1 aristocratic family in the Central Plains. The inheritance of the clan could be traced back to the era of the 7th patriarch, who opened the heavens. Throughout the generations, there were countless cultivators and experts. It was a power that even the cultivators of some of the large sects in the Central Plains had to be respectful to. If a cultivator from the Yuan clan participated in the matter of the Yingtian temple, then some of the large sects that wanted to intercept the Gu family would not be able to figure out the relationship between the Gu family and the Yuan clan. Of course, if the Gu family were to climb up the Yuan clan and establish a friendship with this Midway clan, Mr. Gu Chang would naturally be more than happy to see this happen. Perhaps the Gu family's status in the Central Plains cultivation world would rise greatly because of this. It was unknown if Yuan Lai was disdainful, unwilling to be involved in this matter, or if he had seen through Mr. Gu Cheng's thoughts. In any case, he did not agree. Mr. Gu Cheng's divine will could feel the increasingly violent vibrations coming from the space in the distance, and he could not help but feel anxious. If he could not get Yuan Lai to intervene in this matter, the Gu family would not dare to capture all these Dharma adepts in one fell swoop. In this way, the benefits of this ambush would definitely be greatly reduced. After all, the Gu family would not dare to focus all of the attention that the Central Plains cultivation world had on the Yingtian temple on the Gu family. Mr. Gu Cheng's eyes turned, and he seemed to have thought of something. He smiled and said, "Brother Yuan is too humble. Who doesn't know that the Yuan clan produces talented people? I heard that among the younger generation of practitioners in your clan, there is a person called Yuan Feixiang. Some time ago, when he was only at the late core forging stage, he severely injured a Dharma adept who had the power of a Dharma adept, making his name known throughout the Central Plains cultivation world. I wonder what relationship this person has with Brother Yuan." When Yuan Lai heard Mr. Gu Chang mention Yuan Feixiang's name, his expression instantly became somewhat silent. A dim light flashed in his eyes, but it was instantly caught by the sly Mr. Gu Chang, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. After that dim light flashed in Yuan Lai's eyes, his entire being became somewhat proud. He said, "Feixiang is my younger cousin, and he is truly the #1 expert among the younger generation of practitioners in the clan. Although I have advanced to the Dharma stage earlier than him, compared to my younger cousin Feixiang's future, I am still far behind." "TSK." Mr. Gu Chang waved his hand and said, "Brother Yuan is really too humble. I think Brother Yuan did not get the chance after all. If there had been such a chance, Brother Yuan might not have done any worse than your younger brother. Who knows how high your future achievements will be in the future?" Yuan Lai and Yuan Feixiang were of the same generation, and the two of them were also similar in age. Yuan Lai had advanced to the Dharma stage at a young age, and in terms of practice, he was even a head above Yuan Feixiang. Naturally, he was also one of the best in the Yuan clan. However, Yuan Feixiang was also brimming with talent. Although he had not advanced to the Dharma stage, the Yuan clan had already seen him as a future core member of the clan to be cultivated. This caused many of the practitioners of the same generation in the Yuan clan to secretly feel jealous, and Yuan Lai was obviously one of them. Mr. Gu Chang seemed to know a lot about the news of the Yuan clan, so he cleverly wanted to use Yuan Feixiang to carry out his own strategy. How could Yuan Lai not see through Mr. Gu Cheng's plan? He was originally about to refuse, but he suddenly changed his mind and dispelled the idea. Yuan Lai looked at Mr. Gu Chang strangely. Just as Mr. Gu Chang was being stared at by Yuan Lai, thinking that his scheme had been seen through by Yuan Lai suddenly spat out a few words that made Mr. Gu Chang overjoyed. "All right, I'll help you." At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the sky above Ing River. A huge space tunnel was opened, and the practitioners of the various sects of the North Sea were finally about to exit the Ingtian dojo. Chapter 678. This spatial passage was big enough for the people inside to come out, but no one came out. Gu Chang, Laozu, and the others had a bad feeling in their hearts. At this moment, there was another loud bang, and the spatial passage widened once again. If the previous passage was big enough for 2 people to enter and exit, after this attack, it was big enough for 4 or 5 people to enter and exit at the same time. Gu Chang, Laozu's heart sank, and he said, "Not good, they've already predicted our ambush, and they're coming out together." As if to prove Mr. Gu Chang's words, just as he finished speaking, there was another loud explosion, and the original spatial passage doubled in size again. Mr. Gu Chang hurriedly said to Long River, Laozu, and the others, "You 3 sex cultivators form a Dao soldier formation, quickly move forward, and break this concealment formation that the other party has set up. Hurry!" Although Long River, Laozu, and the others were slightly puzzled, and the 3 of them had previously suggested breaking this concealment formation first, and when the people from the dojo appeared, they would attack them head-on. However, at that time, Mr. Gu Chang did not allow it, and now he urgently wanted the 3 sects to break the concealment formation and shrink the encirclement. The 3 of them suppressed the dissatisfaction in their hearts, and each issued an order, ordering the disciples of their sects to work together to attack this formation that surrounded the Ing Tian dojo's spatial crack. Yuan Lai saw the expressions of the 3 people, and he said with a smile, "It seems that these people did not understand Mr. Gu's meaning." Mr. Gu Chang looked at the 3 figures in the distance, and a look of disdain appeared on his face, and he said, "They are all short-sighted people blinded by greed. They only obtained a little bit of what the Ing Tian faction left behind, and they really think of themselves as the successors of the Ing Tian faction." Yuan Lai declined to comment but changed the topic to ask, "Previously, Mr. asked the cultivators of the 3 sects to set up a formation around the periphery. You must have planned to make everyone stay. Now that the Dao soldier formation has moved forward, it will certainly give the opponent a head-on attack the moment they appear, but it will also give the opponent a chance to escape in the chaos." Mr. Gu Chang nodded his head in approval. With a serious expression, he said, "From what the 3 of them said earlier, I'm afraid we've underestimated our opponents. Now that they've opened up the space tunnel, they're not in a hurry to appear. Instead, they're continuously widening the space tunnel. It's obvious that they're working together to prevent us from taking them down one by one. There must be experts among their opponents. If that's the case, if there really are 6 or 7 Dharma adepts, it's not realistic for us to kill all of them. We might as well find an opportunity to kill a few of them during the chaotic battle." Yuan Lai smiled and said, "Mister, you've thought this through. As the saying goes, a bird in the hand is worth 1,000 birds in the bush. Furthermore, mister, you can't figure out the background of the people in the training hall right now. I'm afraid you're also worried, aren't you?" Mr. Gu Chang's thoughts had been exposed by Yuan Lai, but not only did he not feel embarrassed, he even laughed loudly and said, "Brother Yuan knows me best." For a moment, the 2 of them seemed to appreciate each other. Unfortunately, this scene was quickly ruined by a loud noise and Mr. Gu Chang's slightly exasperated shout. Just as the core forging adepts of the Yinghe, Yingshan, and Dao space sects joined forces to form the Dao soldier formation and tighten their formation, the concealment formation that the North Sea adepts had set up earlier was easily broken. And at this moment, the space tunnel above the source of Yinghe River had also been expanded to its largest size. Just as Mr. Gu Chang and Yuan Lai looked at each other and laughed, a strong aura formed by the condensation of several Dharma adepts had already descended. Mr. Gu Chang's laughter stopped abruptly, and Yuan Lai's expression also turned serious. 10 Dharma adepts! Mr. Gu Chang flew into a rage and shouted at Changhe Laozu and the other 2. These are the 6 or 7 Dharma adepts that you were talking about. Changhe Laozu and the others' expressions changed as well. 10 early Dharma adepts were equivalent to a third of the strength of a large sect. Seeing so many Dharma adepts surging out from the training hall, the adepts of the 3 sects were in an uproar, and the Tao soldier formation that they had formed was also thrown into disarray. Jiang Tianlin, Laozu, and the other 10 Dharma adepts had attacked together. Although they had predicted that there would be people lying in ambush outside the training hall, they had not expected there to be so many people. There were already 8 Dharma adepts, and among them, there was even a mid-Dharma adept. There was also a Tao soldier formation that was formed by tens of mid and late core forging adepts. However, what really made Laozu of the various sects feel a lingering fear was this Tao soldier formation. It was formed by tens of mid and late core forging adepts. If the formation was really practiced to perfection, even if the level of the formation itself was not high enough, it would still be enough to fight against 2 or 3 Dharma adepts. If one was unlucky and was surrounded by the Tao soldier formation alone, it was not impossible for one to die. Laozu of the various sects felt a sense of relief in his heart. Luckily, he had not gone against Jinling just now. If he had really come out alone, then he would have fallen into the enemy's trap, and it would have been obvious that he would have died. Laozu of the various sects were all experienced people. Seeing that their opponents were obviously shocked by their own formation, they quickly seized the opportunity when the Tao soldier formation was operating and joined forces to attack the formation. Although these Laozu of the various sects would be fine even if they were trapped in the formation for a short period of time, behind these 10 North Sea Laozu of the various sects, there were tens of late core forging adepts from the various sections. This Tao soldier formation could not do anything to Dharma adepts, but against core forging adepts, it was a great killing machine. The power of these 10 Laozu's attacks was earth-shattering. Even though Changhe Laozu and the other 2 quickly used their Dharma adepts to control the operation of the Tao soldier formation after they reacted, causing the power of the formation to increase by another level, under the full power of these 10 Laozu, the 3 late core forging adepts who bore the brunt of the attack did not wait for their bodies to be hit back before they were turned into dust where they stood. There were also 5 or 6 people who were sent flying and seriously injured. In an instant, the entire Tao soldier formation was in chaos. Although Changhe Laozu and the other 2 tried their best to suppress it, the power of the Dharma adepts was too terrifying. Although the disciples of the 3 sects barely managed to set up the Tao soldier formation, the 3 sects cultivators did not belong to each other, and they had not practiced it beforehand to familiarize themselves with it, so it was difficult for them to fully unleash the power of the formation. Seeing that these cultivators only needed to join forces for a second attack to completely break through the Tao soldier formation, a long howl suddenly came from the sky. Mr. Gu Chan had brazenly attacking 2 people at once. After all, they were mid-Dharma adepts, so the North Sea cultivators Laozu of the various sects did not dare to be careless. Donghua Laozu, Feng Shidao, and Tongjian Laozu were the first to attack, and the 3 of them worked together to block Gu Chan Laozu in midair. After the North Sea cultivators had left the dojo, Yuan Lai had set his sights on Jiang Tianlin Laozu. This was because, among the 10 Dharma adepts, Jiang Tianlin was the closest in age and temperament to the person who had single-handedly forced Changhe Laozu and the other 2 to retreat and injured Changhe Laozu. Although Yuan Lai had seen through Gu Chan Laozu's motive in provoking him to help, he had agreed to help because he wanted to draw the Gu family to his side. Although the Gu family was not very powerful in Central Plains, they still had 2 mid-Dharma adepts. In the future, if Yuan Lai wanted to make a name for himself in the Yuan clan and raise his status in the clan, even to the point of being able to compete with Yuan Feixiang, who was known as the most outstanding talent in the last few hundred years of the Yuan clan, the Gu family would be his first supporter. Before Yuan Lai had made up his mind to attack, he had thought about the cause and effect of all these things. Therefore, after seeing Jiang Tianlin, all that was left in Yuan Lai's mind was an endless desire to fight. He wanted to see who would win against this adept of the same level, who was able to fight against 3 adepts of the same level, like himself, who was stronger than the adepts of the large sects in Central Plains. Yuan Lai rubbed his hands together, and a bolt of lightning silently fell from Jiang Tianlin Laozu's head. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu seemed to be prepared for this. A jade pendant on his waist flashed with a bright light, and a green barrier appeared. The bolt of lightning hit the barrier, but it only left a ripple on it. Yuan Lai did not attack again after his first attack had failed. The attack just now seemed to be a test, but also seemed to be a greeting. It was more like he was testing whether Jiang Tianlin Laozu was worthy of him fighting. Jiang Tianlin Laozu turned his head and soared into the sky. Yuan Lai followed suit, and the two of them faced each other from a distance of several tens of feet. Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the person in front of him and smiled. "Your Excellency has great lightning magic. You must be a disciple of the Yuan clan?" Yuan Lai was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he asked, "Your Excellency, which sect are you from? With such skills and cultivation, you must not be a nobody." Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled. "I'm just an itinerant cultivator from the mountains. Thank you for your concern." Yuan Lai ignored Jiang Tianlin Laozu's attempt to cover up and said directly, "The things in the Yingtian dojo are not things that you can monopolize. The news of the opening of the Yingtian dojo should have already spread to the cultivation world of the Central Plains. If you hand over a large portion of your gains from the dojo, with the face of the Yuan clan, we might be able to save your lives. Otherwise, even if you can escape today, you will be hunted down by the entire cultivation world of the Central Plains." Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked at the arrogant disciple of the Yuan clan in front of him in amusement. "If all the cultivators of the Yuan clan are as arrogant as you are, then I am very disappointed in the #1 clan of the Central Plains. You impudent!" Yuan Lai was hurt by the undisguised disdain in Jiang Tianlin Laozu's eyes. A wave of anger rose from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. From behind Yuan Lai, more than 10 lightning chains shot out one after another towards Jiang Tianlin Laozu from all directions. Looking at the lightning that filled the sky, Jiang Tianlin Laozu revealed a grave expression that had never been seen before. No matter how arrogant the disciples of the Yuan clan were, the title of the #1 clan of the Central Plains was definitely not just for show. Just as Jiang Tianlin Laozu and Yuan Lai began their battle, the 3 Dharma adepts of the Gu clan that Mr. Gu Chang had brought along, as well as Changhe Laozu and the other 2, also joined the battle. They were fighting with the Laozu of the various sects of the North Sea. The core forging adepts of the 3 sects could finally breathe a sigh of relief. They regrouped the Dao soldier formation that had been previously scattered and took the lead in surrounding one of the battles. With the help of the Dao soldier formation, they would definitely be able to end this battle first. Once the Dharma adepts were free to attack, Mr. Gu Chang's original plan of taking them down one by one would be realized. However, just as the Dao soldier formation surrounded Changhe Laozu from the Misty Water Pavilion and Misty Water Pavilion, more than 10 treasures suddenly surged out from the space tunnels that Laozu of the various sects had opened up earlier and attacked the cultivators of the 3 sects who had just formed the formation. The first to appear was a huge golden sword that carried an unstoppable momentum. Under the panicked gazes of the cultivators of the 3 sects, it slashed down. Chapter 679. In fact, the various North Sea sects Laozu did not care too much about these ambushes. As long as they did not stumble into someone else's trap, it was rare for Dharma adepts to engage in a life-and-death battle between Dharma adepts, because it often meant that both sides would suffer. And the appearance of the 10 Dharma adepts from the North Sea had actually broken the trap that Mr. Gu Chang and the others had previously set up outside the training hall. When Gu Chang Laozu and the others had no choice but to entangle these Laozu disciples, they planned to use the Dao soldier formation to rearrange the trap and then carry out the method of breaking them one by one. However, Gu Chang Laozu had overlooked a weakness that truly worried the North Sea Laozu disciples. That was, after the various sects Laozu rushed out of the training hall to fight, the late core forging adepts from the various sects were still hiding in the training hall. This was the biggest weakness of the various Laozu disciples. The encirclement of the Dao soldier formation was a threat to the Dharma adepts, but to the various sex late core forging adepts hiding in the training hall, it was simply a nightmare. The Dharma adepts could still hold on when trapped in the formation, but for the late core forging adepts like Lu Ping, when trapped in the Dao soldier formation and faced the attacks of dozens of mid and late core forging adepts, there was no way they could survive. Just as the Dao soldier formation surrounded Long River Laozu, who was fighting Smoke Beast Laozu, Smoke Beast Laozu intentionally or unintentionally turned his body, disrupting the rhythm of his attack and defense. This allowed Long River Laozu to gain the upper hand for a moment, and Smoke Beast Laozu was beaten into a sorry state. However, what Long River Laozu did not see was the trace of a mocking smile on Smoke Beast Laozu's face. Just as Smoke Beast Laozu revealed a flaw in his movement, and was chased by Long River Laozu, the encirclement of the Dao soldier formation also turned involuntarily. The cultivators that formed the Dao soldier formation were all facing the direction of the source of the Ying River. In the sky above that direction, the space passage that Laozu had previously opened up was wide enough to know that it had not yet been closed. Once the Dao soldier formation was activated, Smoke Beast Laozu would be completely trapped in the Dao soldier formation. At that time, Long River Laozu, whose cultivation was slightly higher than Smoke Beast Laozu, would also assist the formation from the side. At that time, Smoke Beast Laozu would probably really be in danger of dying. However, in the face of Long River Laozu's harassment, Smoke Beast Laozu did not reveal any panic. Instead, a sly smile appeared on his face, as if his plot had succeeded. Long River Laozu's heart sank and he suddenly recalled something. Turning his head, he was about to warn Long River when he saw a sky-piercing, gigantic golden sword slashing down from the back of the Dao soldier formation. 2 mid-stage core forging cultivators and 1 late-stage core forging cultivator were caught off guard and were cleaved into 2 by the gigantic sword. The Dao soldier formation shook, but it did not break. However, the gigantic golden sword was only the beginning. Immediately after, more than a dozen magic treasures carrying their respective masters' divine abilities and spells fell down and bombarded the Dao soldier formation. More than a dozen cultivators from the 3 sects were either killed or injured. The entire Dao soldier formation immediately collapsed amidst the panic of the cultivators from the 3 sections. Long River Laozu was so anxious that his eyes were about to burst into flames. He was not the only one. On the other side, Wuji Laozu and Yushan Laozu also had a look of grief and indignation on their faces. They roared angrily and wanted to rush towards the disciples of their sects who were being slaughtered. However, the North Sea Laozu, who were fighting against them, suddenly exerted force as if they had a tacit understanding, entangling the 3 Laozu cultivators. The 3 Laozu's hearts were bleeding. These dozens of middle and late-stage core forging cultivators were the sum of the elite disciples of the 3 sections. They were the result of the 3 sects' thousands of years of inheritance and development. They were also the foundation of the 3 sects' future. Now, more than half of them had been killed or injured in a sneak attack. This was simply annihilating their sects. More than a dozen late-stage core forging cultivators rushed out from the space tunnel that had yet to close. These cultivators were different from the middle and late-stage core forging cultivators of the 3 sections. Aside from the 3 formation masters, they were all cultivators from the North Sea sects who had high hopes of advancing to the Dharma realm. Otherwise, they would not have been sent to the Yingtian dojo by the sects to try their luck. These late-stage core forging cultivators were far from being comparable to the cultivators from the 3 small sections. Therefore, when more than a dozen cultivators suddenly rushed out from the back of the Dao soldier formation, the entire Dao soldier formation did not have time to react before 1/3 of the people were killed. The remaining cultivators fought on their own. Although they still had the advantage in numbers, they were still no match for these North Sea late-stage core forging cultivators. After refining the pure Yang soul, Lu Ping's divine sense grew stronger and stronger. Through the space tunnel, he could clearly observe the situation on the battlefield. Although the other cultivators could also barely see the situation outside through the space tunnel, they were still far from being able to do so when compared to Lu Ping. Therefore, when the sects seized the opportunity created by Yanzhan Laozu and attacked from behind, Lu Ping took the lead and killed 3 late-stage core forging cultivators with the golden scales sword, causing the cultivators who rushed from behind him to feel a chill in their hearts. Fortunately, they were now on the battlefield, and everyone could only unite against the outside enemy. Otherwise, there might be cultivators who saw Lu Ping as a future enemy and shot him in the back. After these North Sea core forging cultivators rushed into the Dao soldier formation of the 3 sects, they did not stop at all. However, they no longer rushed to kill these cultivators of the 3 sections. Instead, they concentrated their strength in the direction in which the Laozu of the various sects had rushed in. They were trying to escape. Although Guchang Laozu was surrounded by Feng Shidao, Donghua Laozu, and Tongjian Laozu, he was after all a mid-dharma stage expert. He had already firmly occupied the upper hand and was clear about the situation on the battlefield at a glance. However, when the core forging cultivators of the various sects suddenly rushed out of the space tunnel again, Guchang Laozu knew that he had made a mistake. When encircling and attacking the Laozu of the various sects, he had neglected the core forging disciples of the various sects under Laozu. Seeing that Lu Ping and the others were wreaking havoc in the Dao soldier formation of the 3 sects, Guchang Laozu chose to ignore them. It was not that he did not want to help, but that the cultivators of the 3 sects who formed the Dao soldier formation would not listen to his orders at all. At this time, in the midst of the chaos, the 3 sects all followed the instructions of the 3 Laozu of Chenghe, Wuji, and Yushang, who were being held back by others. They had long become a plate of loose sand waiting to be trampled on. However, just as the cultivators of the various sects of the North Sea did not care about expanding the battle and instead rushed out to kill, Guchang Laozu had no choice but to open his mouth to remind them. At this time, he had already realized that these core forging disciples were the weakness of the 10 Laozu present. As long as these people were trapped, the 10 Laozu of Laozu would not easily abandon their disciples and escape. As long as they could hold on for a while, the various sects within thousands of miles of Ying Mountain who had received news of the appearance of the Yingtian dojo would definitely send their cultivators over. At that time, these people would really not be able to escape. "Stop them! Our reinforcements will be here soon!" There was no need for Guchang Laozu to say more. At this time, Chenghe Laozu and the others had already realized that these core forging cultivators were the key. They all called out to their disciples to chase after them. However, after these 10 or so cultivators broke through the encirclement, they whistled and fled in different directions. This caused the cultivators of the 3 sects to be at a loss as to what to do. These people chased after the core forging cultivators of the North Sea. Apart from their own Laozu's orders, their biggest reliance was their numbers. If it was a one-on-one fight, after seeing the valiance of these late-stage core forging cultivators, the cultivators of the 3 sects would definitely not dare to split up and chase after them. The battle between Yuan Lai and Jiang Tianlin was still in full swing. Yuan Lai's fierce thunder technique was extraordinary, and Jiang Tianlin also wanted to see the methods of the number 1 aristocratic family in Middle-earth. For a moment, the two of them were evenly matched. Yuan Lai shouted in delight. When he turned around, he saw the backs of more than 10 core forging cultivators fleeing in different directions. Yuan Lai's thoughts turned and he immediately understood. He shouted to Guchang Laozu, "These people are not from the same sect. They are from several sects." A feeling of humiliation instantly surged within Ancestor Gu Cheng's heart. "I've been schemed against again." "Ha ha!" Jiang Tianlin Laozu looked up to the sky and laughed. He said, "Today, I have seen the magic of the Yuan family. You really live up to your reputation. In the future, the mountains are high and the rivers are long. Forgive me for not accompanying you." After saying that, Jiang Tianlin shook his hands. Yuan Lai felt the surrounding scenery change. Countless tall and straight trees rose from the ground, forming a dense forest. Countless leaves fluttered in the forest towards Yuan Lai. Yuan Lai sneered and said, "Pretending to be mysterious? It's just a small trick." After he finished speaking, countless bolts of lightning shot out from his body, and it was as if he had become a ball of lightning. The leaves that were falling toward him were all turned into ashes, and the lightning extended outwards, destroying a large area of the forest. In just an instant, the illusion of the entire forest disappeared. When Yuan Lai looked up, he only saw Patriarch Jiang Tianlin's figure flash in the sky and disappear. Jiang Tianlin Laozu temporarily used his natal magic treasure to project a forest illusion to trap Yuan Lai. Then he turned around and fled. At this time, the core forging cultivators of the various sects had already escaped. The North Sea sect's Laozu, who were left behind, prepared to retreat. The 10 Laozus who had temporarily joined forces to allow the disciples of the various sects to escape, all went their own ways. At this time, Guchan Laozu's spirits rose, and he shouted, "There's no need for all of you to stay. As long as you can hold back 3 to 5 people, we will be able to reap great rewards this time." Guchan Laozu was not only speaking to the cultivators on his side, but he was also speaking to the North Sea Dharma adepts. He could tell that these cultivators were not from the same sect, so he naturally believed that there was no conflict between these sections. At this time, he wanted to see if there was any internal strife, and if someone took the opportunity to attack the Black Hand sect. Although this was an extremely lucky idea, unfortunately, Guchan Laozu had predicted it. Feng Shidao and Donghua Laozu retreated, and before they retreated, they each used a magical power to block Guchan Laozu's pursuit. However, these 2 magical powers, along with Copper Sword Laozu, attacked Guchan Laozu's path of retreat. After Guchan Laozu and Copper Sword Laozu had each resolved the attacks that were aimed at them, Copper Sword Laozu saw Guchan Laozu blocking Copper Sword Laozu's path of retreat with a cold smile on his face. Copper Sword Laozu's expression changed. How could he be a match for the person in front of him alone? Chapter 680. Guchan Laozu was about to make a move, but his expression suddenly changed. He turned around and slapped his palm behind him. There was a crisp sound, and Guchan Laozu's body shook in surprise. Behind Guchan Laozu, Jiang Tianlin Laozu took a few steps back. The two's palms seemed calm and ordinary, but one could tell that this move was extremely dangerous just by looking at the distorted space around it. When Guchan Laozu turned around, he saw a dense forest suddenly appearing in the air not far away. A lightning was raging in the forest, turning the trees into nothingness. Copper Sword Laozu was overjoyed when he saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly appear. He slashed with the copper sword in his hand, and a golden light flew towards Guchan Laozu. The golden light shrunk in the air, but the sword light became more and more dazzling. This was originally a sword move that Copper Sword Laozu had prepared to use against Guchan Laozu. At this time, with Jiang Tianlin Laozu's help, Copper Sword Laozu had a chance to escape. However, this sword technique could only be used, but could not be withdrawn. Copper Sword Laozu simply took advantage of the time when Guchan Laozu was unstable to use this sword technique on Guchan Laozu. Not mentioning Guchan Laozu, who was clumsily blocking Copper Sword Laozu's full blow, Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly appeared beside him and said, "Don't continue fighting, retreat quickly!" Copper Sword Laozu was shocked and quickly retreated behind Jiang Tianlin Laozu. At this time, San Ming Laozu got rid of a Gu family Dharma adept and took the opportunity to attack Changhe Laozu, who was fighting Yanzhao Laozu, with a magical power. He wanted to help Yanzhao Laozu get rid of the entanglement. However, at this time, Zhengli Laozu of the Sea Flame sect, who had just used a series of magical powers to repel Yushang Laozu, did not escape. Instead, he suddenly appeared behind Yanzhao Laozu, and under San Ming Laozu's shocked cry, he suddenly attacked Yanzhao Laozu with a pair of Dharma treasures. Everything happened so suddenly that San Ming Laozu could not stop it in time. He could only attack Zhengli Laozu with the Dharma treasures in his hands, trying to attack Zhengli. However, San Ming Laozu had just attacked Yushang Laozu, and in his haste, he could not use the qi in his body to threaten Zhengli Laozu. Zhengli Laozu seemed to have calculated that San Ming Laozu was exhausted, and was prepared to take San Ming Laozu's attack head-on. He would not let Yanzhao Laozu go. Yushang Laozu was shocked when she took San Ming Laozu's attack. Then, she saw Yanzhao Laozu, who was about to retreat, being forced back by her own people. She was overjoyed, and quickly cooperated with her opponent to attack Yan Zhao Laozu from the front and back. Yan Zhao Laozu saw that he was about to fall into a hopeless situation again. He screamed and was about to fight back, but he saw a green light coming from the sky, nailing Sangli Laozu in the air. Then Sanming Laozu, who had only used 30% of his strength, severely injured Sangli Laozu and made him vomit blood. The Yingsu treasured mirror and the copper sword floated above Jiang Tianlin Laozu's head. Yushang Laozu looked at the Yingsu treasured mirror above Jiang Tianlin Laozu's head, pointed at him and shouted, "It's you! You're the one who obtained the Yingsu treasured mirror that night!" Jiang Tianlin Laozu turned to look at Yushang Laozu. Yushang Laozu, who was about to step forward, paused. Only then did she remember that the three of them had been suppressed by this person in front of her. Wouldn't she be the one to die if she stepped forward now? Jiang Tianlin smiled coldly and joined up with Sanming Laozu, Yan Zhao Laozu, and together with the copper sword Laozu, the four of them fled. For a time, no one dared to stop them, nor did they have the time to do so. Because there was still one person who was alone, and he was currently surrounded by Yushang Laozu and the others. After Tsungli Laozu had been injured by Sanming Laozu, he had taken the opportunity to break free from the Yingsu treasured mirror. However, in that short moment, Jiang Tianlin and the others had already gone far away. Yushang Laozu did not dare to cause trouble for Jiang Tianlin and the others, so she came directly for him. Tsungli Laozu was shocked and turned to leave, but the sound of something slicing through the air came from behind him. Tsungli Laozu turned around and slashed, just in time to see the Dharma adept of the Gu clan that he had just shaken off catch up to him. Together with Yushang Laozu, they launched a pincer attack on him. Tsungli Laozu turned pale with fright. He had originally planned to ambush Yan Zhao Laozu and then divert the attention of the ambushers so that he could escape successfully. At the same time, he could also take revenge on Yan Zhao Laozu, who had fought with him for the Dharma Power Soul in the training hall. However, he had gone for wool and come home shorn. Jiang Tianlin's light of imprisonment had made him the one who had brought up the rear. Tsangli had originally been injured by Sanming Laozu's attack, but after taking a blow from Yushang Laozu and the Gu clan Dharma adept head-on, Tsungli Laozu spat out a mouthful of blood 3 feet away, but he had still managed to buy himself a chance of survival. Taking advantage of the fact that the two Laozus were stunned by his reckless attack, Tsungli Laozu used the blood escape technique, which consumed a large amount of his vital energy. His body turned into a bright red light as he tried to escape. However, just as the light started to move, a cold light shot towards him, and the red light was instantly cut off. Tsungli Laozu fell from the light with a look of despair on his face. Donghua Laozu hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoist Ling Yun, please rest assured. Our sects are already allies, and there is no reason for us to stand by and do nothing." Ling Yun Laozu nodded and sighed. He did not say anything else. For a time, the atmosphere between the three of them became heavy. Zhang Shi pondered for a moment and asked, "Uncle Master Ling Yun, are you returning to the North Sea alone this time, or are you coming with us?" Before Zhang Shi could finish his words, Donghua Laozu's brows suddenly furrowed. He abruptly turned around and saw several rays of light chasing after the three of them. Although Zhang Shi was puzzled as to why these cultivators from the Central Plains were still chasing after them, a strange light still flashed across his eyes. When he looked again, he saw several cultivators in the light, such as Chanhe Laozu, Wuji Laozu, and the cultivator from the Gu clan were chasing after the three of them with solemn expressions on their faces. At this time, Ling Yun Laozu and Zhang Shi also looked behind them. Zhang Shi suddenly said, "Uncle Master, these people don't look like they're chasing us. Instead, they look like they're being chased." Chapter 681. After Lu Ping broke out of the encirclement, he flew in the direction of Ying River. After a while, he realized that there was no one behind him. Lu Ping dove into Ying River and flowed with the current. In less than an hour, he returned to the rocky cave abode. Inside the cave abode, Du Jialua was practicing a fist technique. This was a set of fist techniques that Lu Ping had found in the Inheritance Jade Scroll of the Yingtian sect. This set of fist techniques was meant for mortals who had yet to start refining their blood. There was only one purpose: to strengthen the mortal's physical body to the greatest extent before they started refining their body. When Lu Ping saw this set of fist techniques, he was rather surprised. He sighed to himself that the inheritance of the Yingtian sect was indeed very complete. They even had fist techniques that could help mortals build their foundation. Although this set of fist techniques seemed to have a very limited effect on physical strength for cultivators, it was already very impressive for a mortal. At Lu Ping's level of cultivation, he naturally knew what a strong physical body meant to a cultivator who had advanced to the Dharma phase. Du Jialua had mistakenly eaten a spirit fruit that strengthened his physical body. His physical body was already strong, and now that he was practicing this fist technique, it was even more beneficial. Not only would his physical body continue to strengthen under the conditioning of the fist technique, but part of the medicinal power that was originally hidden in Du Jialua's blood would also be stimulated and absorbed by his physical body. Unfortunately, Junling did not have this fist technique. At Lu Ping's current level of cultivation, this fist technique was no longer of any use to him. Seeing that Lu Ping had returned, Du Jialua hurriedly came up to greet him. Lu Ping saw that his entire body was drenched in sweat. In his divine will, he could sense that Du Jialua's entire body was surging like a wild horse. The impurities in his physical body were seeping out of his pores along with his sweat. Because the amount that seeped out was very small, it was not obvious. However, to Lu Ping, this was already very rare. Although there were spirit medicines in the world of cultivation that could instantly rejuvenate one's body, to Lu Ping, these spirit medicines were simply pulling at seedlings to help them grow. They would deplete a cultivator's potential prematurely. They might improve quickly in the early stages, but in the later stages, there would be no more room for improvement. Everything was a step-by-step process. Relying too much on external forces would eventually lead to a disadvantage. Lu Ping nodded his head in satisfaction, but he didn't say any words of praise. He only said, "Continue to practice diligently. Before activating your bloodline, don't slack off." Du Jialua replied respectfully, and Lu Ping turned around and walked to the back. If you keep begging others, why should others help you? Du Jialua had a look of fear on his face as he retorted. If you bully my sister, this disciple will naturally give up his life to protect her. It's just that you're not strong enough right now. Not only can you not protect your sister, you can't even protect yourself, right? Yes, that's right. Du Jialua said somewhat dejectedly. He was, after all, a 12-year-old child, and Lu Ping's harsh words made Du Jialua lose his confidence the most. Humph! Lu Ping said with a cold expression. If that's the case, then why did you stop? If you're not strong enough, you can still cultivate. But if you think that you won't be able to protect your family in the future, then why bother dreaming of becoming a cultivator? Isn't it better to stay at home and be a fisherman? At this time, Du Shi also opened his mouth and said, Luor, it's not easy for you to enter the sect that the Immortal Elder is in. You must not waste the chance to activate your bloodline again. Du Jialua looked at the fox sister in his stepmother's arms, then looked at Du Shi, gritted his teeth and said, Yes. Then, he got up from the ground and began to practice his fist technique again. One move after another, he used even more force between moves. It was obvious that Lu Ping's words had greatly stimulated him. Lu Ping glanced at Du Shi, thought for a moment and said, Since this child has already entered our sect will naturally not ignore his family and disciples. Although you are a demon, you have already taken over the body of a human, and you have some magic power in your hands. After we return, I will send you to a place where there is a good friend of mine, and you can work under him. I'm afraid that our sect will not accept any more mixed-blood humans as disciples, but that good friend of mine may not be the case. If your daughter is fated, she will naturally be protected by him. Du Shi was, after all, an old demon who had taken over the body of a human for more than 10 years. She naturally understood the hidden meaning in Lu Ping's words, so she hurriedly kowtowed to Lu Ping. The fox in her arms seemed to know that the person in front of it had given it a great favor, so it hurriedly imitated its mother and extended its forelimbs in front of its head, kowtowing. Lu Ping heard Du Jialuo's shouts as he practiced his punches. Lu Ping could tell that Du Jialuo's punches were stronger than before, and his shouts were filled with excitement. He couldn't help but smile. Then, he snorted coldly and walked back to his stone room. After everyone left the cave, only the previously injured Taoist Xian Zhu stayed behind. Seeing that Lu Ping had returned, Taoist Xian Zhu was already waiting at the stone room's entrance to greet him. He had seen everything that had happened to Lu Ping. Lu Ping saw that Taoist Xian Zhu's face had already recovered and smiled. "Looks like Uncle has recovered well. Elder Fornax's Bell Cauldron Elixir is indeed the best healing elixir in the North Sea." Taoist Xian Zhu smiled and glanced at Du Jialuo, who was practicing his fist technique. He said in a low voice, "Why has our sect's water sword deity finally decided to accept a disciple?" Lu Ping sighed and said, "If this disciple can successfully awaken his bloodline, he must be very talented. Even if he is not very intelligent, as long as he works hard, he will definitely become a Dharma adept in the future. Who wouldn't want a disciple like this?" Taoist Xian Zhu nodded and smiled. "It's not just you. Even I have the thought of accepting a disciple. I'm afraid Brother Xian Sun, Brother Xian Su, and the others have the same thought. It's just that you were the one who recommended him to the sect. Firstly, it's not good for us to fight with you. Secondly, your abilities have long surpassed ours, and you don't have any disciples under your tutelage. This disciple is so talented, and we are afraid of wasting his future in our hands. We might as well hand him over to you, the number 1 disciple of the 3rd generation. Let's see how far you can push him." "Uncle, you must be joking. You think too highly of me. In the end, everything still depends on the disciple himself." Lu Ping paused, then continued, "It's just that our sect has a rule that a disciple can only become an unofficial disciple or a true disciple after reaching the mid-blood condensation stage. If he has the ability and opportunity, I will naturally be happy to help him. But if my own sect doesn't live up to expectations, who can I blame?" Taoist Xian Zhu smiled. "No matter what, if word of this gets out, it will definitely cause a stir in our sect. The water sword deity, who is known as the most knowledgeable Zhenling, actually wants to accept a disciple. If word gets out, won't this child be the envy of others?" Lu Ping smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid that before he can be envied to death, he will be killed first. Uncle, please don't say such things. I still want to leave a good seed for our sect." Taoist Xian Zhu was amused. See, there are still at least a dozen years before he can become your disciple. It's hard to say whether he will be willing or not, but you're thinking too much on his behalf." Lu Ping might look calm, but deep down, he was very proud. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been called the most knowledgeable by the 4th generation disciples. This time, because he saw Du Jialuo's excellent aptitude, he wanted to accept him as his disciple. Instead, Taoist Xian Zhu rebuked him. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Taoist Xian Zhu looked at Lu Ping's embarrassment, and found it even more hilarious. However, she didn't want to tease Lu Ping anymore, so she smiled and said, All right, I'm a core disciple of our sect. Of course, I know what's important. Don't worry, if this child really activates his bloodline cultivation, no one will look at him differently. It's just that you entered the Yingtian dojo smoothly. How come you're the only one who came back now?" What Lu Ping didn't notice was that throughout the conversation, Taoist Xian Zhu was speaking to him as if they were peers of the same generation. Perhaps even Taoist Xian Zhu herself didn't notice it, but unknowingly, Lu Ping's position in Taoist Xian Zhu's heart had become the same as hers. He was no longer just a third-generation disciple, a junior. In fact, it wasn't just Taoist Xian Zhu herself. Taoist Xian Sun, Taoist Xian Su, Taoist Xian Qin, and the other second-generation disciples, after witnessing Lu Ping's various achievements and strength, had imperceptibly put Lu Ping on the same level as themselves. And the root of all this was Lu Ping's growing strength and gradually increasing influence in the sect. Lu Ping roughly recounted his encounter in the Yingtian dojo to Taoist Xianzhu and said, "Disciple is fast and took the shortest route, so I came back the earliest. But looking at the time, the 3 martial uncles and martial uncle Jiang should be back by now." As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, the restriction at the entrance of the rocky cave shook. When Lu Ping and Taoist Xianzhu raised their heads to look, their faces changed. Taoist Xiansun was covered in blood. He grabbed Taoist Xiansu, who was on the verge of death, with one hand and supported the unconscious Taoist Xianchen with the other. After seeing Lu Ping and Taoist Xianzhu, his body fell down. Taoist Xianzhu was about to go forward, but Lu Ping had already appeared in front of Taoist Xiansun with a flash of light. He supported Taoist Xiansun, who was about to fall, and stuffed a precious origin tracing pill into Taoist Xiansun's mouth without any explanation. The origin tracing pill melted in Taoist Xiansun's mouth. The powerful medicinal power caused Taoist Xiansun's dispirited expression to shake. He anxiously said, "Azura, it's an Azura, there's also a devil cultivator. They've surrounded us. Senior brother, danger." After saying that, Taoist Xiansun, who had forcefully gathered a mouthful of true yuan to bring the heavily injured Taoist Xiansu and Taoist Xianchen back, could no longer hold on, and completely fainted. Luckily, Lu Ping stuffed the origin tracing pill into his mouth at the first moment, preventing his injuries from worsening. At this moment, Taoist Xianzhu also came to the side and helped Lu Ping to lift Taoist Xianchen up. He said, "How is it? What should we do?" For a moment, Taoist Xianzhu did not care about it, and placed all his hopes on Lu Ping. He forgot that he was Lu Ping's martial uncle and should stand up at this moment. Lu Ping glanced at the anxious Taoist Xianzhu. His divine sense had already finished inspecting Taoist Xiansu and Taoist Xianchen's injuries. He said, "Martial Uncle Xiansu has fainted due to the exhaustion of true yuan. Although his injuries are serious, it does not harm his foundation. He will recover after a few years of rest. Martial Uncle Xianchen's divine sense has been damaged. Azura thirsts for blood, devil cultivators devour souls. It seems like he has really encountered a devil cultivator." Taoist Xianzhu panicked when he heard that. Divine sense has been damaged? Junior sister Xianqin is a formation grandmaster. Damaging her divine sense is no less than crippling her cultivation. What should we do? Lu Ping was speechless as he looked at Taoist Xianzhu, who had lost his composure. He said, Martial Uncle Xianchen's injuries are difficult to treat in an emergency. However, it is not impossible. The most important thing now is not Martial Uncle Xianchen. I'm afraid Martial Uncle Jiang is still surrounded by the Azura." Chapter 682. Taoist Xianzhu quickly said, "That's right. However, from what junior brother Xiansun said, senior brother Jiang seems to have fallen into a trap. The Azura and the Devil Cultivator. The number of Azura and the Devil Cultivator is definitely not small. How can we save senior brother Jiang?" Lu Ping saw that Xianzhu Zhenren had finally calmed down from his earlier panic and regained some of his rationality. But before Lu Ping could speak, Xianzhu Zhenren's next sentence made him not know whether to laugh or cry. "Oh yes, there's a teleporter here that leads directly to the North Sea. Disciple Lu, quickly activate it, and inform our sex cultivators to come and rescue him," Lu Ping said helplessly. "Don't panic, Uncle Master. With Uncle Master Jiang's skills, unless he's facing a great Dharma adept or surrounded by several cultivators of the same level, even a mid-Dharma adept may not be able to stop him." Hearing Lu Ping's words, Xianzhu Zhenren's agitated emotions finally calmed down. This Uncle Master made Lu Ping secretly sigh. Her status as one of the 4 female cultivators of the sect could not be compared to that of Master and Tianqin, and even Xianqin Zhenren. Perhaps it was because she was too sheltered by a powerful master like Tian Shui Laozu. Lu Ping continued to explain. Now that the teleporter has been activated, there's not enough time. Furthermore, outside the teleporter is the North Sea Demon Clan's camp outside Huanyu Island. 1 or 2 people might be able to escape detection, but once our sect mobilizes a large force, it will definitely alert the North Sea Demon Clan. At that time, not only will the teleporter be in danger, but the reinforcements from our sect will probably have to fight the demon cultivators first. Xian Zhuzhenren let out a long breath and said, Disciple Lu, you're right. It's me who lost my composure. No wonder Master always says that I'm weak and urges me to go out and train. I'll leave this matter to you, disciple nephew. I'll do my best to cooperate. This was not the time to be humble. Lu Ping nodded and said, Uncle Master, please take care of the other 3 Uncle Masters. I'll go out and scout first. Perhaps Uncle Master Jian has already fought his way out. Lu Ping walked along the bottom of the river for nearly 10 miles. His divine telekinesis had already captured the traces of the water Shura that he had seen before. Lu Ping put on the cloud-colored robe and turned into a stream of water, approaching the 7 or 8 water Shuras that were hovering in the water. These 7 or 8 water Azuras were led by a water Azura that was equivalent to a core forging stage water Azura. They seemed to be a water Azura team that was out patrolling. Lu Ping used his mind to summon a stream of undercurrents to surround the 8 water Azuras. By the time the core forging stage water Azura realized what was going on, the undercurrents had already wrapped around them. The water Shura in the core forging stage shrunk and elongated its body, and it managed to escape from Lu Ping's water manipulation spell. However, before it could escape, its eyes were suddenly filled with horror. Then, the Shura's head flew into the air, and a stream of clear blood gushed out from its neck. Lu Ping reached out his hand, and a weapon that was held by the water Shura fell off and flew towards Lu Ping's hand. The other 7 water Azuras in the blood condensation stage all had crazed expressions on their faces. They struggled with all their might, but they could not break the water surrounding them. However, blood gushed out of their chests like flowing water, and they died after struggling for a while. Lu Ping reached out his hand, and the nether water sword suddenly appeared in Lu Ping's hand. Lu Ping stepped forward and collected the weapons in the hands of the 7 water Azuras. These weapons were second-class mutated spiritual materials that had been roughly refined and polished into weapons. When used against enemies, they only relied on the hardness of the second-class spiritual materials. However, the weapon in the hands of the core forging stage water Azura was a genuine magic treasure. Lu Ping had read about Azuras in ancient books, and knew that Azuras had an innate ability to nurture magic treasures. When Azura was born, it would choose a spiritual material as its companion weapon. As the Azura grew, the quality of the companion weapon would also increase. When the Azura became a Grand Azura in the blood condensation stage, the companion weapon would become at least a second-class mutated spiritual material. When the Azura became an Azura equivalent to the core forging stage, the companion weapon would also grow into a magic treasure. Once the Shura grew into a blood Shura that could shock the entire cultivation world, each of these Dharma stage experts would have a weapon that was equivalent to a spirit treasure. Often, when fighting against Dharma stage experts from the human clan or the demon clan, the blood Shura would use his companion weapon that was equivalent to a spirit treasure to beat the human clan or the demon clan of the same level, until they could not lift their heads. Lu Ping put away these spiritual materials and magic treasures. These were a great harvest for any Jinling core forging stage cultivator. However, in Lu Ping's eyes, after the trip to Tian Dojo, these things were no longer enough to make Lu Ping feel the joy of harvest. The corpse of the water Azura killed by Lu Ping slowly dissolved in the Ying River. Other water Azuras, such as the wood Azuras, the earth Azuras, and the ice Azuras, would also turn into dead wood, rocks, and ice after death. Therefore, there was a saying in the cultivation world that Azuras were actually life forms formed from the essence of the 5 elements, wind, and ice. Although this legend had not been proven, many people in the cultivation world believed it. During the discussion at the dojo, Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's escape route was more or less the same as Lu Ping's. They both followed the direction of the Ying River. Lu Ping searched upstream along the Ying River. After a while, there were more water azuras in the Ying River. Most of these azuras were at the blood condensation stage, which was equivalent to a grand azura. Occasionally, there were some core forging azuras leading them. These azuras were not much of a threat to Lu Ping, but there were too many of them. Lu Ping could not kill all of them in a short time. Once he attacked, he would definitely alert the powerhouses in the Azura clan. Once he was noticed by the Blood Azura, Lu Ping would not be able to withstand an attack from the Blood Azura's accompanying spiritual treasure. Lu Ping thought for a while, and suddenly a set of stone armor appeared on his body. Then, he covered his body with the 5 elements cloud raiment and slowly passed through the water azuras from the bottom of the Ying River. With Lu Ping's current mastery of the water magic power, coupled with the help of the 5 elements cloud raiment and the stone armor, it would be difficult for anyone below the Dharma realm to see through Lu Ping's movements unless they had mastered a very special magic power. Lu Ping traveled a few more miles in the Ying River. There were almost no ordinary azuras in the river. Along the way, he saw a few strong azuras in the middle and late stages of the core forging realm. Lu Ping's heart sank. He knew that he was getting closer to the inner part of the Azura camp. At this moment, Lu Ping faintly felt a roar coming from above his head. Even though Lu Ping was deep in the Ying River, he could feel the great power contained in the faint roar. This was definitely a scene that could only appear when Dharma realm cultivators were fighting. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Jiang Tianlin Laozu might be trapped here by the azuras. However, to trap Jiang Tianlin Laozu, at least the Blood Azura would have to make a move. At this moment, Lu Ping was very hesitant. After all, he was only a late core forging realm cultivator. Even though he was strong, he was not arrogant enough to think that he had the ability to affect the battle between Dharma realm adepts. Jiang Tianlin Laozu, San Ming, Tong Jian, and Yan Ling had just broken through the encirclement and escaped for a few dozen miles. The 4 Laozu were about to say goodbye to each other and meet up with their own disciples, preparing to return to the North Sea. At this moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's divine will suddenly cut through the air like a wave. Under the shocked gazes of the other 3, an obvious ripple appeared in the air and spread out in all directions. Immediately, the 3 ancestors seemed to have realized something, and they all became vigilant. Tong Jian Laozu frowned and was about to ask something, but he heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu gasp and say, "Not good, run!" Although the 3 Laozu did not understand why Jiang Tianlin Laozu said this, the 3 of them had already seen Jiang Tianlin Laozu's strength. Since he had said to run, there was naturally a great danger coming. The 3 of them looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu's anxious tone and felt a chill in their hearts. Unfortunately, it was too late. Just as the 4 of them were about to escape, there was a strange fluctuation in the space in front of the 4 of them. A small brilliance suddenly appeared, and the surrounding clouds condensed. When the brilliance stabbed in front of Tong Jian Laozu, it had already turned into a 3-foot-long water sword. Tong Jian Laozu let out a strange cry and said, "Water Azura." The copper sword in his hand drew a yellow light and slashed at the water sword that was close at hand. However, when Tong Jian Laozu's magic weapon slashed on the water sword, it passed through the water sword and only splashed a few water droplets. The water sword was still undamaged and stabbed at Tong Jian Laozu. Tong Jian Laozu's eyes widened and he shouted. He had to use his protective magical power to resist the water sword, but the water vapor in front of him suddenly condensed into a water mirror. The water sword pierced through the water mirror, but it appeared behind Tong Jian Laozu, allowing Tong Jian Laozu to escape. It's Blood Azura, a Dharma stage Blood Azura. Tong Jian Laozu did not have time to thank Smoke Scorpion Laozu, who was next to him, and he hurriedly shouted. The water sword flew forward for a distance, and a pale, almost transparent palm suddenly appeared in midair and grasped the water sword. At this moment, on the other side, Sanming Laozu suddenly shouted, and 3 lights suddenly appeared above his head. The lights hovered above Sanming Laozu's head, forming a simple 3-man formation. A cold wind suddenly blew, and Sanming Laozu shivered for no reason. He was even more frightened. The three lights above his head swayed. If Sanming Laozu had not tried his best to maintain it, it would have been blown out by the cold wind just now. Sanming Ancestor felt a chill run down his spine. His voice trembled as he said, Form Jura, Dharma form. A gust of cold wind swirled around a strand of chi, and a cyan silhouette flashed and disappeared. The ancestors of the three bright sects saw a mocking smile on the face of the cyan silhouette. Sanming, Tong Jian, and Smoke Scorpion quickly stood together, back to back, and looked at the blood azure that surrounded them. Jiang Tianlin still stood on the other side, as if he was a stranger to the three, but his eyes were fixed on the undulating black fog in the north of the mountain in the distance. Chapter 683. The three Dharma adepts Laozu were surrounded by two Dharma adepts blood Shura. This might sound unbelievable, but it was the truth. 3 oil lamps circled above Sanming Laozu's head. One of the 3 sparks on the wick was a heaven-level spiritual fire, while the other 2 were earth-level spiritual fires. Sanming Laozu had obtained another heaven-level spiritual fire in the Yingtian dojo. He had planned to refine it on his oil lamps after returning to the North Sea, so that the power of his 3 natal oil lamps would increase by another level. Once his 3 natal oil lamps gathered 3 heaven-level spiritual fires, the power of the 3 lamps would be comparable to a spirit treasure. If that was the case, Sanming Laozu would not have a headache facing the omnipresent attacks of the spirit treasure in the hands of the Wind Shura. Compared to Sanming Laozu, Copper Sword Laozu was even more aggrieved. Copper Sword Laozu fought with great vigor. In the North Sea cultivation world, Copper Sword Laozu was known for his bravery. This time, when he was fighting with the water attribute Blood Shura, it was as if every move of the sword, which was full of power, hit empty air. The feeling of not being able to withstand the force made Copper Sword Laozu very uncomfortable. The water sword in the hands of the Blood Shura was even more unpredictable, making it difficult for Copper Sword Laozu to defend. If it were not for Smoky Laozu's help, Copper Sword Laozu's body would have been pierced through by this strange spirit treasure. At the same time, there was a shrill cry. Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who had been floating motionlessly in the air, suddenly tilted his head back. His face instantly turned pale, and half a mile in front of him, a wave of divine thoughts suddenly exploded in the void. In the distance, the undulating black fog behind the mountain suddenly shrank back, as if a person who was about to climb to the top of the mountain had suddenly slipped and fallen. Blood Shura, soul devouring. Although Sanming Laozu and the other 2 Blood Shura were in full swing, Jiang Tianlin's strange state had worried them. Jiang Tianlin was the strongest among the 4. If something happened to him, the other 3 would not be spared. However, when the 3 saw the wave of divine thoughts exploding in the void not far away, and the shrill cry from behind the mountain peak, their faces became increasingly ugly. Jiang Tianlin had actually attracted the attention of a demon Shura. No wonder he had been standing still just now. It turned out that he had started a divine thoughts competition with the demon Shura. The most fundamental manifestation of devil cultivators' ability to devour souls lay in the fact that devil cultivators possessed an innate divine ability that allowed them to devour cultivators' divine sense. Furthermore, it was impossible to guard against this ability. Most cultivators would often use their divine sense to scan their surroundings in times of danger, and this was exactly what devil cultivators wanted. When the demon Shura devoured half of the demon Shura's divine thoughts, the demon Shura would lose control of the primordial chi in the body. If no measures were taken, the demon Shura would eventually die from chi deviation. At the same time that ancestor Jiang Tianlin sensed that there were Shuras lying in ambush around him, the Xioma also sensed that among the 4 of them, ancestor Jiang Tianlin had the most powerful divine sense. In the eyes of the Xioma, such a powerful divine sense was like an incomparably delicious dish. Naturally, the Xioma immediately targeted him. However, the demon Shura had still underestimated Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Although Jiang Tianlin Laozu was caught off guard and suffered a small loss under the demon Shura's sneak attack, he quickly realized the demon Shura's existence. A huge burst of divine thoughts caught the demon Shura off guard. The demon Shura's powers had been broken, and the immense pain caused the demon Shura to howl. Jiang Tianlin's divine thoughts also seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, and his face was as white as a sheet. Fortunately, after the demon Shura's powers were broken, his divine thoughts returned. Although he did not suffer much damage, there were many restrictions on using his divine thoughts again. This Dharma stage demon Shura had never suffered such a huge loss before. After being forced back by Jiang Tianlin, a black fog rose up from the back of the mountain. Its green eyes were like a hungry beast, and it rushed towards Jiang Tianlin Laozu with the black fog. The demon Shura was an existence that was more feared by adepts of the same level than the Shura. The blood Shura had spirit herbs that made it difficult for adepts of the same level to defeat it, but at least they had a chance to escape. On the other hand, the demon Shura's ability to devour souls made it difficult for adepts of the same level to injure him. It was a good thing that Jiang Tianlin was no ordinary early Dharma adept. Although his remarkable techniques would not allow him to defeat demonic adepts of the same level as him, it would still be extremely difficult for demonic adepts to harm him. The man and the demon fought for more than 10 rounds, but neither of them could do anything to the other. Although the demon Shura would not rest until one of them was dead, Jiang Tianlin did not dare to relax at all. In a situation where the two of them were equal in strength, the competition was nothing more than patience. They were both looking for the other's small flaws, accumulating small victories to become big victories, and waiting for the other to reveal a flaw first. Jiang Tianlin and the demon Shura were evenly matched. Perhaps other adepts would marvel at Jiang Tianlin's strength, but to Tongjian Laozu and the other two, it was not a good sign. The Shura was good at all kinds of escape techniques, so each Shura was not only good at attacking, but was also a master of assassination for the adepts of the same level. The wind Shura came and went without a trace, and the air above Ing River was full of water vapor, so the water Shura was like a fish in water. The two blood Shura joined forces, and with the two strange spirit treasures in their hands, they suppressed Tongjian Laozu and the other two. This was especially so for Tongjian Laozu, who had a fiery temper and was used to fighting in a straightforward manner. He had never been harassed like this before. A wave of anger accumulated in his chest, and he became more and more irritable. However, Tongjian Laozu's irritation was seen by the two Shura. Finally, Tongjian Laozu caught a flaw of the water Shura, and he rushed toward the water Shura's body. Smoke bewitching Laozu, who was on the side, shouted, but it was too late to stop him. Tongjian Laozu smashed the water Shura into pieces with his sword, but he saw that another water Shura appeared next to him, looking at him with a mocking expression. The water sword, which had been separated by smoke bewitching Laozu's water mirror, also reappeared in the water Shura's hand. Tongjian Laozu was shocked, and he quickly flew backward. At the same time, the copper sword in his hand slashed at the water Shura again, but the water sword in the water Shura's hand disappeared again, and the water Shura once again turned into a sky full of clouds and disappeared when Tongjian Laozu's flying sword slashed at it. Behind him, smoke bewitching Laozu shouted, "Be careful behind you!" Tongjian Laozu had goosebumps all over his body. His intuition, which had been tempered in countless life-and-death battles, made him realize the danger in an instant. Tongjian Laozu shouted, and suddenly, a blood mist burst out from his back. Before the blood mist dispersed, it turned into 18 blood swords and slashed behind him. A series of explosions rang out, and an unwilling roar rang out from behind him. Then it disappeared. Smoke bewitching Laozu's voice sounded again from behind Tongjian Laozu. "Come back!" Hearing smoke bewitching Laozu's shout, Tongjian Laozu paused and seemed to hesitate for a moment. Then, without looking at the situation behind him, he went straight back to Saming Laozu and Smoke bewitching Laozu. "You were careless!" Smoke bewitching Laozu didn't seem to notice Tongjian Laozu's momentary hesitation. Instead, Tongjian Laozu blamed himself. He coughed because he used the blood sword magical power. I was rash. Thank you for reminding me in time. The 18 blood swords nurtured in the core space were obviously Tong Jianlaozu's desperate ability. As soon as he used it, Tong Jianlaozu's face looked pale. At the place where Tong Jianlaozu's flying sword slashed, the water shura condensed again. Its figure seemed a little illusory. Obviously, the 18 blood swords that Tong Jianlaozu used just now did not just force the water shura to retreat. The situation is not good. Smoke Bewitching Laozu was the assistant of Sanming Laozu and Tong Jianlaozu. Although she didn't directly participate in the battle with the two shura, it was because of her assistance and support that they managed to maintain a balance with the two blood shura. It was also because she didn't directly join the battle that she could see the formation of both sides more clearly. These two Azuras are obviously using their innate abilities to fight with the three of us, taking the opportunity to weaken our true essence and magic power. After our true essence is depleted, these two Azuras can rely on the spirit treasures in their hands to win. These two Azuras are very clever. Smoke Bewitching Laozu's words seemed to have a hidden meaning, but Tong Jianlaozu didn't listen to it. Instead, he looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was entangled with a black fog in the distance, and said worriedly, "It's a pity that martial nephew Jiang is entangled with the Devil Shura. It seems that they are evenly matched. If we can't get rid of the entanglement of these two Shura, we will definitely be defeated by them one by one." The fire above Sanming Laozu's head soared, forming a three-colored ring of fire in the sky, blocking the spiritual treasure in Feng Shura's hand. The three oil lamps above Sanming Laozu's head flickered and were almost blown out by a gust of cold wind. Sanming Laozu's face flickered with the oil lamps. Taking advantage of the opportunity to catch his breath, Sanming Laozu sighed and said, "I don't know how the disciples we brought are now. I hope they have escaped from the encirclement of the Shura and Devil Shura." The three ancestral patriarchs scanned the area with their divine will. By now, they knew that there were still many core forging and blood condensation Azuras and demonic cultivators hiding nearby. They formed a circle from afar. However, because both sides were in the Dharma stage, these low-level Azuras and demonic cultivators couldn't interfere. Tong Jianlaozu and Yanshou Laozu didn't say anything. Obviously, they knew that if their disciples were surrounded, they would most likely be dead. At this moment, a violent spatial vibration came from the direction of the battle between Jiang Tianlin and the Devil Shura. The divine senses of the two sides couldn't help but peep at the other side of the battlefield. They saw Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly use 108 natal magic treasures to form a huge myriad wood forest. In the sky above the myriad wood forest, a mirror that was like a full moon hung high in the sky. A green beam of light shot out from the mirror, nailing the Devil Shura in the air. At this time, Jiang Tianlin also used all his Jinyuan to resist the struggling Devil Shura in the green light, but he couldn't find the time to launch the final attack on the Devil Shura. What was going on? Tong Jianlaozu and the other two were somewhat puzzled. The three of them were being held back by the Shura. Could it be that someone would suddenly appear at this time and launch the final attack on the Devil Shura? Yanshou Laozu reacted the fastest. Her eyes suddenly lit up, but before she could cry out in alarm, a sudden clap of thunder sounded in the clear sky. In the midst of the Devil Shura's mournful cry, a purple thunderbolt fell from the sky. The constantly struggling black fog was like snow in the morning sun. In an instant, most of the black fog was split apart by the thunderbolt, revealing the silhouette of a human figure and a pair of green eyes. Chapter 684. Why was Yuan family known as the #1 family in Middle-earth? The identity of Ping Doran's direct descendant had granted Yuan family a noble status, and the unique Thunder bloodline power was indeed powerful. However, these were not enough for Yuan family to firmly occupy the title of the #1 family in the world of cultivation for tens of thousands of years. Yuan family's bloodline power was special, but the other bloodlines of Ping Doran, such as the Kuan Fish and the Cloud Rock, the primitive crocodile and the green sea snake bloodlines of Jiao Daoren, the tyrant turtle bloodline of Priest Gui, the fire Luan and wood Luan bloodlines of Luan Taoist, and so on. The quality of these bloodlines was not weaker than the thunder bloodline of Yuan family. In terms of inherited powers, the thunder bloodline of Yuan family was indeed marvelous, but the inherited powers of the 5 great sects in Middle-earth and the Crystal Palace of East Sea were not any weaker than the inherited powers of Yuan family. However, for tens of thousands of years, Yuan family had still firmly occupied the title of the number 1 family. Whether it was the 6 great sects in the world of cultivation, or the direct bloodline of the 7th patriarch, among spirit creature cultivators, no one had ever come out to question or challenge the position of the number 1 family in Yuan family. On the contrary, Yuan family had also enjoyed a high prestige among these great sects and powerful clans. What did they rely on? They relied on the unique thunder bloodline of Yuan family, and the thunder magic inherited from Ping Daoren. Thanks to these lightning-type abilities, the Yuan family had made great contributions to the cultivation world when the Shura and Xiao-mo cultivators had ravaged the world of cultivation in the past. Although the Yuan clan's lightning techniques weren't necessarily much stronger than the techniques inherited from the major clans, the Yuan clan's unique lightning attribute bloodline made the Yuan clan's lightning techniques the number 1 lightning technique in the cultivation world. According to legends, Azura and Devil cultivators were formed from the origin of this world. Every few 100,000, or even 2,000 or 3,000 years, they would appear in the cultivation world on a large scale to wreak havoc on the world. These strange creatures with innate abilities had an absolute advantage in battles between cultivators of the same level. And the only thing that could restrain them was the lightning technique. This was especially true for devil cultivators. They were born to devour souls, so they were naturally restrained by all kinds of lightning techniques and divine abilities. Because of this, every time a great tribulation descended and the world of cultivation was plunged into a reign of terror, the Yuan clan's lightning technique, which could be said to be the number 1 lightning technique in the cultivation world, became a decisive force to restrain Azura and Devil cultivators. A large sect might be several times stronger than the Yuan clan, but when a great tribulation descended, their role wouldn't even be half of the Yuan clan's. From this, it could be seen how important the Yuan clan was in the cultivation world. Moreover, the Yuan clan seemed to be very willing to contribute their strength in every great tribulation. Every time a great tribulation descended, the cultivators of the Yuan clan could always be seen at the forefront of the battle against Azura and Devil cultivators. And after every great tribulation, the Yuan clan's talents would wither, and their strength would be greatly damaged. Because of this, the Yuan clan's status didn't only come from their strength, but also from their selfless dedication to the cultivation world when a great tribulation descended. The reason why the top 6 martial institutions were recognized by the cultivation world was probably because of their dominating power. However, the reason why the Yuan family was recognized by the cultivation world was not only because of their rich resources, noble bloodline, and powerful heritage, but also because of their benevolence and righteousness, which had saved them from the most dangerous situations. The Yuan clan's lightning technique had such a great effect in restraining Azura and Devil cultivators during the Great Tribulation. It wasn't that no one in the cultivation world wanted to obtain the lightning technique inheritance from the Yuan clan, but without exception, they all failed. It wasn't that they didn't obtain the Yuan clan's inheritance, but because they didn't have the lightning attribute bloodline of the Yuan clan, even if they could cultivate these lightning technique inheritance, they would always be weaker than the cultivators of the Yuan clan. The Yuan clan's bloodline was inherited from the head of the 7th patriarch, Ping Daoren. This lightning attribute bloodline was only possessed by the Ping bloodline of the 7th patriarch, and Ping Daoren only passed this bloodline to the Yuan clan. It wasn't that no one cultivated the lightning technique inheritance in the cultivation world. Aside from the Yuan clan, there were actually many lightning technique inheritance in the cultivation world. For example, Lu Ping's water attribute bloodline could also be used to cultivate the divine Kui water lightning among the lightning technique inheritance. At the beginning, this kind of technique was called the lightning fall technique, lightning palm, and so on. They were mostly the same, but once its power rose to the level of a small technique, it would become the Kui water lightning, and when it rose to the level of a great technique inheritance, it would be called the divine Kui water lightning. However, whether it was the Kui water lightning or the divine Kui water lightning, in the hands of the Yuan clan, the power of this kind of technique would be 30% more powerful than other cultivators. Moreover, for a water attribute bloodline like Lu Ping, apart from the Kui water lightning, other lightning technique inheritance such as the divine Kui water lightning and the divine Kui earth lightning couldn't be cultivated directly. However, the cultivators of the Yuan clan were clearly not subject to this restriction. Whether it was the divine Kui water lightning, 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 or the divine Kui water lightning, as long as it was a lightning technique inheritance, the cultivators of the Yuan clan could cultivate it more easily than other cultivators. Moreover, the effect of the cultivation was still better than the cultivators of other bloodlines. Moreover, in addition to the various attributes of the divine Kui water lightning, the cultivators of the Yuan clan could also cultivate a direct lightning technique inheritance. This lightning technique was not divided into the 5 elements, wind, or ice. It could also be a fusion of the divine abilities of these attributes to form a non-attribute divine lightning similar to the lightning tribulation. It was also called the divine chaos lightning by them. This kind of lightning technique was the true inherited divine ability of the Yuan clan that relied on the tens of thousands of years of bloodline inheritance to truly stabilize the clan's fate. In the hands of the cultivators of the Yuan clan, once this kind of divine ability was successfully cultivated, it would have the power of a great divine ability. If they could take it a step further, it would be a supreme lightning technique that would strike terror into the hearts of Asura and Devil cultivators. In the world of cultivation, other than the Thunder Gem Calabash, this kind of supreme lightning technique could only be cultivated by the disciples of the Yuan clan. As for the Thunder Gem Calabash, the legendary number 1 divine weapon in the hands of Pingdaoren, it was said that its refining method had long been lost. It was also said that among the Kuan Fish clan and the Yuan clan, there might still be fragments of the refining method passed down, but the people of the 2 clans had never acknowledged it. If the lightning technique could reach the level of a great divine ability, it would be able to have a certain restraining effect on Blood Shura and Blood Demon at the Dharma stage. However, the only thing that could really cause great damage to Blood Shura and Blood Demon in a battle of powers was the supreme lightning technique. In the face of this lightning technique, regardless of whether it was a devil cultivator, an Asura, or a spirit treasure in the Asura's possession, they would all suffer great damage. This was especially true for devil cultivators and Asura's spirit treasures. Needless to say, devil cultivators were naturally more restrained by the lightning technique than Asura. However, the accompanying magic treasures of Asura, although after Asura reached the Dharma stage of Blood Shura, their accompanying magic treasures would also be upgraded to the level of spirit treasures. However, these accompanying spirit treasures only had the power of spirit treasures, but had not been tempered by the thunder, so they did not have the spirituality of a real spirit treasure. Therefore, the accompanying spirit treasures of Asura were most restrained by the lightning technique, and even Asura were restrained by the lightning technique. To a large extent, this was because the accompanying magic treasures and accompanying spirit treasures of Asura would lose most of their power under the attack of the lightning technique, and even Asura's own strength would be suppressed by more than half. Therefore, during the battle between Jiang Tianlin and devil cultivators, after receiving a telepathic message from Lu Ping, who had snuck into the vicinity of the battle with the help of the stone armor and the 5 elements cloud robe, Jiang Tianlin and devil cultivators immediately used this method of mutual confinement, which seemed unwise to outsiders. This gave Lu Ping the opportunity to command the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash to use the great magic thunder technique to directly hit the defenseless devil cultivator, causing great damage. The appearance of the Great Thunder technique not only severely injured the defenseless Blood Demon in one fell swoop, but also shocked the 2 Blood Asuras who were besieging the 3 ancestors. They hurriedly withdrew their symbiotic spiritual treasures that they used to attack. Having grown into Blood Shuras, They naturally knew the damage that the great magic thunder technique could do to their accompanying spiritual treasures. Reinforcements had arrived. The eyes of Tong Jian Laozu and the other two lit up. This time, the three of them did not hesitate at all. Taking advantage of the moment when the two blood shuras withdrew their respective spiritual treasures, they rushed out of the pincer attack of the two practitioners and joined Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. Because Tong Jian and Laozu were protecting the two wings behind Sanming Laozu, who was at the front, without hesitation, the sparks from the 3 oil lamps above his head once again formed a 3-colored ring of fire. He threw it at the Blood Devil, who had been severely injured by the great magic thunder technique. The Blood Devil, who had been severely injured by Lu Ping's 7 treasures thunder calabash, also knew that it had reached the moment of life and death. The black fog that had been dispersed by Lu Ping gradually thickened again, wrapping its looming body again. However, Lu Ping, who was still hiding on the side, found that the thick fog around the Blood Devil had gradually been dyed with a layer of red. Just when Lu Ping secretly wondered if his blow had really seriously injured the Blood Devil, something suddenly happened to the Blood Devil, who was watching Sanming Laozu's 3-colored ring of fire that was about to descend. With a shrill roar, a brighter red fog suddenly gushed out of the pale red fog, turning the entire fog into a bright red blood fog. With the help of this blood fog, the dispirited state of the blood fog after being struck by the lightning seemed to suddenly recover to its original state. Under the double suppression of Jiang Tianlin Laozu's myriad woods encirclement, and the abundant void mirror, the Blood Devil suddenly broke free and escaped from the Sanming Laozu's 3-colored ring of fire by a hair's breadth. However, under the burning of the Sanming Laozu's 3-colored ring of fire, the blood fog around the Blood Devil seemed to suddenly become flammable. It suddenly turned into a blood-red fireball, melting away most of the blood fog around the Blood Devil. The Blood Devil's body, which was hidden in the blood fog, was once again revealed. At this moment, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared above the Blood Devil's head, silently falling in the direction where the Blood Devil was hiding. It had to be said that Lu Ping's grasp of timing was excellent, and the control of all this was due to Lu Ping's experience in life and death battles, as well as his tyrannical divine sense that was comparable to that of a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. This Xiumo was obviously not easy to deal with. Although it had been seriously injured, it still escaped Lu Ping's sneak attack. However, looking at the Xiumo's barely dodging figure, Lu Ping knew that this Xiumo was probably an arrow at the end of its flight. However, what Lu Ping did not know was that it was precisely because this Blood Devil had sensed Lu Ping's tyrannical divine sense that the Blood Devil had an illusion that there was still a Dharma manifestation stage cultivator hiding nearby, ready to attack at any time. Just as the Blood Devil broke free from Jiang Tianlin Laozu's imprisonment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu's mouth began to overflow with blood because the Forest of Trees spell had been broken. However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu knew that this was not the time to estimate his own injuries. Jiang Tianlin raised the 108 leaves again, and the Forest of Trees spell was reformed. Once again, it enveloped the Blood Devil. At the same time, the effulgent treasured mirror kept spinning above his head, ready to shoot out the light of imprisonment at any time. After the Blood Devil was imprisoned again, it would create an opportunity for Lu Ping to use his Thunder spell. The Blood Devil looked at Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was opposite him, and was shocked. He had the experience of killing several early Dharma manifestation stage human cultivators, but Jiang Tianlin was the first human cultivator of the same level who could face him head-on. At this time, he was already seriously injured. If he allowed the Blood Devil to imprison him again, the Dharma manifestation stage cultivator hiding in the side would definitely appear again. It was very likely that the Xiumo clan wanted nothing more than to exterminate the Dharma manifestation stage cultivator. The Xiumo clan suddenly screamed at the two blood shuras who were chasing up to Tong Jian Laozu and Yanzhan Laozu. Jiang Tianlin Laozu shouted, "They're trying to escape!" As soon as Jiang Tianlin Laozu's voice fell, Tong Jian Laozu and Yanzhan Laozu tightened their grip, and they could not help but increase the intensity of their attacks. In the void next to Jiang Tianlin Laozu, 7 small lightning spells burst forth in a row. In thunder of Gingjin, in thunder of wood, in thunder of Kuei water. This made the Blood Devil believe that there was a practitioner of the Yuan clan hiding nearby. Therefore, the Blood Devil no longer hesitated, and a large blood-colored net suddenly appeared in midair, covering Jiang Tianlin and the other 3 Laozu. At this time, the 4 Laozu were really afraid of the Blood Devil's methods, and they all focused their attention on the large net. The Blood Devil turned into a mass of blood-colored light and disappeared in the sky. The 2 Blood Shuras also took this opportunity to shake off the 2 Laozus, Tong Jian and Yan Zhan, and disappeared in midair in a flash. Lu Ping's 7 small lightning spells fell on the large blood-colored net. There was no need for the 4 Laozus to do anything, and the large net turned into a mass of water vapor amidst the raging lightning and disappeared in midair. Tong Jian Laozu's divine sense spread out with lingering fear, deeply afraid that the Shura had not gone far, but was hiding and ready to attack at any time. At the same time, he asked Jiang Tianlin, "Could it be a practitioner of the Yuan clan?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu smiled and said to the void beside him, "Martial nephew Lu, come out." Under the surprised gazes of the other 3 Laozus, Lu Ping appeared in front of everyone in a long robe. The cloudy light 5 elements robe was the best at changing forms, and Lu Ping did not want to reveal the treasure on his body, so he turned the 5 elements robe into an ordinary long robe. After repelling 2 blood Asuras and 1 blood demon, the core-forging Asuras that were hiding in the surroundings retreated. Jiang Tianlin and the others had expended a lot of true essence and spiritual energy during the fierce battle. However, I believe that with the 3 of you traveling together, it will be difficult to encounter a sneak attack from 2 blood Shuras and 1 blood demon again. After bidding farewell to the 3 Laozus, Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin Laozu hurried back to the rocky cave abode. Looking at the 3 unconscious people, Jiang Tianlin Laozu asked anxiously, "How are they?" Lu Ping's expression was solemn as he said, "Uncle Xianqin is fine. Uncle Xiansu has been continuously injured, but his foundation has not been damaged. After resting for 3 to 5 years, with the help of my elixirs, it should not be a problem. Only Uncle Xiansen's divine will has been damaged. Although there is no danger to his life, I am afraid that condensing the golden elixir will be delayed for another 10 years. Chapter 685. Xian Zhuzhenren panicked and asked, "Nephew Lu, didn't you say that Sister Xuanqin's will was damaged, but Brother Xuanqin's injury is not serious?" Lu Ping sighed and said, "Uncle, the situation was urgent. I only did a quick check and saw that Uncle Xuanqin's life was not in danger. That's why I said that. Sister Xuanqin's will was indeed damaged, but it was not as serious as Uncle Xuanqin's." Xian Zhuzhenren wanted to say something, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu spoke first. "Is there a way to save him? Delaying condensing the golden elixir for decades is not a small matter. Perhaps this delay will affect Brother Xuanqin's hopes of entering the Dharma stage in the future." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Actually, I just found a way." Xian Zhuzhenren asked anxiously, "What way?" Lu Ping rummaged through his storage device and found a jade slip. Jiang Tianlin Laozu recognized this jade slip as an item from the Yingtian sect, so he asked, "Is this the method passed down by the Yingtian sect?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "The North Sea doesn't have a way to heal a cultivator who's been injured by a demon's innate skill. At least, our sect doesn't have one. But this time, we found this jade scroll in Yingtian Dojo. It contains a medicinal pill recipe that can save Junior Marshal Uncle Xian Senator. Coincidentally, we also came across the main ingredient used to concoct this medicinal pill. I've already left a tracking mark on it, but I don't know if it's discovered it or not." After Lu Ping said that, he couldn't help but feel a little proud of his sudden inspiration. Jiang Tianlin Laozu narrowed his eyes and said in shock, "You mean that demonic cultivator?" Lu Ping saw that Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had a serious expression on their faces, so he said solemnly, "Yes, it is. This elixir recipe is called the Soul Returning Elixir. It is a miraculous elixir for the Dharma stage. It uses the soul-devouring crystal of a Dharma stage blood demon as a catalyst, along with a few other precious 3,000-year-old spirit herbs and more than 10,000-year-old spirit herbs. It has a miraculous effect on healing the divine will of a cultivator who has been injured by demonic cultivation. The soul-devouring crystal was the foundation of the soul-devouring divine art that devil cultivators relied on. This was a method unique to devil cultivators. The soul-devouring crystal was condensed in the core space of a devil cultivator. Most devil cultivators would self-destruct their core space before they died, so it was usually necessary to kill a devil cultivator by surprise to obtain it. How long can Junior Brother Schwanson's injuries last? Disciple gave Martial Uncle a pill to strengthen his divine sense. It can last for 3 days, but after 3 days, Martial Uncle Xian Sen's divine sense will fade and his cultivation will decline. Only after a few decades of diligent cultivation will he be able to recover. Jiang Tianlin Laozu frowned and said, "Only 3 days? That's not enough time to return to Tianling Mountain to gather more people." Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, "Actually, we only have 1 to 2 days. After all, I've never cultivated this kind of soul return elixir before. If I want to be confident, I'll have to make 2 batches of elixirs. If I spend 2 days, I can only hope that I can successfully cultivate the first batch of elixirs." Xian Zhuzhen mumbled, "What should we do?" After Dongwu Laozu, Zhang Shi, and Ling Yun Laozu broke out of the encirclement, they saw that Gu Chang Laozu, Changhe Laozu, and the rest had actually caught up to them again. Their faces turned pale with fright, and they did not have the time to think about what was the point of these people chasing after them anymore. With a flash of light, the 3 of them tried to escape again. However, before the 3 of them could escape, they saw 2 more streaks of light flying in their direction from the right. The 3 of them could not be more familiar with these 2 streaks of light. They were Feng Shutiao from Xian Ling sect and the Dharma adept from Fei Ling sect. When Feng Shutiao and Changhe Laozu saw Dongwu Laozu and the rest in front of them, a hint of joy appeared on their faces. The 2 streaks of light that had originally been flying past the 3 of them suddenly changed direction and landed in the direction of the 3 of them. Zhang Shi seemed to realize something, and he turned around to look at the Dharma adepts who were chasing after them. His eyes shone with a strange light, and it was obvious that he was also using some kind of eye technique. "Uncle!" Zhang Shi's expression changed, and he said in a low voice, "These people don't look like they're chasing us. Instead, it looks like they're being chased." Dongwu Laozu's expression darkened, and he saw that Feng Shutiao and Changhe Laozu had already landed in front of the 3 of them. Without waiting for Dongwu Laozu to ask any questions, Feng Shutiao said anxiously, "Mr. Dongwu, we can't go any further. A group of Azuras led by 3 blood Azuras and 2 blood demons is about to catch up to us." 3 blood Azuras and 2 blood demons? Feng Shutiao, are you sure? Dongwu Laozu's expression changed immediately, and his tone of voice was no longer as calm as before. "Uncle, I'm afraid that what he said is true, and there's more to it than that." Dongwu Laozu looked in the direction that Zhang Shi was pointing in. Behind Gu Chang Laozu, Changhe Laozu, and the others, there were a few strange streaks of light flashing in quick succession. Chasing after Gu Chang Laozu and the others were 3 balls of black mist that shrank and shrank in size, emitting ear-piercing screeches as they flew. And behind these streaks of light that were obviously Dharma stage blood Azuras and blood demons, there were more than 10 streaks of light that were chasing after them. These streaks of light were obviously core forging stage Azuras, and within these streaks of light that were flying, thick black mist could be seen churning and churning. At this time, Gu Chang Laozu and the others had also noticed that Feng Shutiao and the others, who had just escaped, were actually standing some distance away from them. A look of confusion flashed across Gu Chang Laozu and the others' faces, and they were immediately filled with a sense of foreboding. A pincer attack, and they were surrounded. Lu Ping instructed Xuanzhuzhenren to guard the cave abode again, and he and Jiang Tianlin did not have time to rest, and they once again left the rocky cave abode. Lu Ping used the Cloud Glow 5 Elements robe to surround him and Jiang Tianlin Laozu, and the two of them instantly disappeared into the sky. After flying out of the ocean-crossing boat, Lu Ping followed the mark that he had left on the blood demon that he had severely injured through the 7 treasures Thunder Gourd, and flew in the direction that he had returned to. After a moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu frowned slightly and said, "Why is the direction that we are heading towards the source of the Ying River? Could it be that after those Azuras retreated, they are also heading towards the Ying Tian Dojo?" Lu Ping's face also darkened, and he did not speak. Along the way, the number of Azuras that appeared had suddenly increased, and as the two of them went deeper, the number of Azuras increased, and the cultivation of the Azuras also increased. Among them, there were even some late core forging stage Azuras, and there were even some late core forging stage Azuras whose will was not weaker than that of ordinary Dharma adepts. Lu Ping had to carefully use his will, which was also comparable to that of a Dharma adept, and the miraculous Cloud Glow 5 Elements robe, to avoid the attention of these Azuras and demon Azuras along the way, so as to avoid attracting the attention of even stronger Azuras and demon Azuras. At this moment, there was suddenly a continuous roar of spells in front of them. The two of them looked at each other, and Lu Ping nodded, a look of joy on his face. He said, "It's over there!" Jiang Tianlin Laozu's slightly pale face smiled slightly, and he said, "Looks like our luck is not bad. Perhaps there is a chance that we can take advantage of." Chasing behind Guchang Laozu and the other Dharma adepts were 6 blood Azuras and 3 blood demons. In addition, there were also dozens of core forging stage Azuras and demon Azuras. As they flew, they formed a mysterious formation, and they secretly surrounded Guchang Laozu and the others from both sides. The dozens of core forging stage adepts that Ying He, Dao Yu, and Ying Shan had used to form a formation to ambush the various North Sea sects did not follow. Looking at Changhe Laozu and the others, who looked as if they had lost their parents, it was obvious that these adepts had been killed by the Shura army's sudden attack. Guchang Laozu was the first to land in front of the 5 North Sea Laozu. At this time, he had already seen the strange light that was chasing after Feng Xiutao and the others. It was the same light that the blood Azuras and blood demons were chasing after them. How could he not know that they had already been surrounded by the Shura and demon Azuras? Behind the Azuras that were flying towards them, there were also dozens of lights that spread out like stars in the sky, gradually forming a huge encirclement with the dozens of lights that were coming from behind them. "Let's not mess up our previous grievances. Let's face the enemy together, how about that?" Guchang Laozu made a prompt decision. Compared to the Shura and demon Azuras in front of them, the human adepts were clearly at a disadvantage, and there was clearly no reason for them to fight amongst themselves. "That's how it should be." Dongwu Laozu was, after all, older than Feng Xiutao in terms of seniority. This time, Feng Xiutao did not object. Lu Ping led Jiang Tianlin and Laozu to a place where the battle was taking place, just within the range of his divine will. Here, with the cover of the 5 Elements cloudy robe, Lu Ping was not afraid of attracting the attention of the human Dharma adepts, the 11 blood Azuras, and the 5 blood demons, who were fully focused on the battle. Only Jiang Tianlin Laozu glanced at Lu Ping and raised his eyebrows. This distance was just within the range of his divine will, and the reason that Lu Ping had stopped here was obviously not because he had already understood the range of his divine will, but because there was an 80% chance that his divine will could also cover such a long distance. Jiang Tianlin was very clear about the level of his own divine will. Although he had not specifically trained his divine will could not be compared to that of the mid-Dharma adepts, but it was still considered quite good among the adepts of the same level. However, now that Lu Ping had stopped the boat here, this meant that this lad's divine will was not weaker than that of most Dharma adepts. On the contrary, it was very likely that it was slightly stronger. Originally, there were only 9 blood Shuras and 4 blood demons surrounding Guchang Laozu and Dongwu Laozu. However, Guchang Laozu, Dongwu Laozu, and the rest combined forces to form a total of 13 Dharma adepts. Guchang Laozu was also a mid-Dharma adept, so the group of them combined forces to deal with the attacks of the Shuras and demonic Shuras. If not for the fact that there were close to 100 core forging stage Shuras and demonic Shuras forming a large formation and harassing them from all sides, perhaps Guchang Laozu and the rest would have already broken out of the encirclement. The heavily injured blood demon, who had been cruising in the periphery to coordinate with the other blood Asuras and blood demons in besieging the human race cultivators, had just flown to a spot in the air where he was temporarily separated from the core forging stage Asuras who had formed a large formation to assist in besieging these human race cultivators when a familiar yet terrifying green light suddenly appeared and nailed him in the air. Without waiting for the blood demon to struggle, the familiar myriad woods net wall immediately appeared and completely imprisoned the blood demon in midair. In the past, Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had been able to imprison the blood demon even when they were fighting face to face. Now, the severely injured blood demon was imprisoned even more tightly than before. Everything had happened extremely abruptly, and Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had concealed their presence extremely well. As a result, the other blood Shuras and blood demons were unable to react in time when the blood demon was pinned in midair by Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. How could the core forging stage Shuras and blood demons that were roaming around them break through Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's imprisonment? The imprisoned blood demon knew very well what was going to happen next. Before he was severely injured, he was unable to break through Jiang Tianlin and Laozu's imprisonment. Although Jiang Tianlin was also slightly injured now, his injuries were undoubtedly much lighter than the blood demon's. Hence, the blood demon did not have the strength to break through the imprisonment. At this moment, the blood demon could only place his last hope on the other blood demons and blood Shuras who were not far away from him. However, the besieged human cultivators were all very astute. When they saw one of the blood fiends being ambushed, they instinctively assumed that reinforcements had arrived. Thus, their attacks intensified as they did everything they could to pin down the blood fiend before them so that the reinforcements could successfully kill off the blood fiend cultivator at the Dharma form stage. Only Dongwu Laozu, Feng Xutao, and the other North Sea cultivators hesitated for a moment when they saw the myriad woods net wall formed by 108 leaf treasures and the familiar green pillar of light. Then, they also began to attack their opponents with all their might. Although they could not figure out why Jiang Tianlin would help them, it was not the time for them to wonder. Perhaps they would break through the blood demon's blockade at this moment. However, what happened next gave Yuanlai a slight shock. A bolt of purple lightning as thick as a water bucket descended from the sky and struck the head of the imprisoned blood demon in one fell swoop. An incomparably miserable howl rang out, piercing toward the divine sense of all the cultivators present like flying needles. Everyone felt waves of piercing pain in their heads. Fortunately, these people had already condensed their Dharma powers, and their divine sense was stable and solid, so it did not cause too much damage. Yuanlai stared blankly at the bolt of lightning before suddenly asking, "May I ask which branch of the family you are from?" "I, Yuanlai, am here to greet you." Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw the power of the bolt of lightning that had already severely injured a blood demon. When they heard Yuanlai's question, their eyes lit up. At this moment, Yuanlai's role in the crowd was no less than that of Guchang Laozu, who was at the mid-Dharma stage. If another Dharma disciple from the Yuan clan joined the fray, with the famous lightning spells of the Yuan clan, they would definitely be able to break through the siege of these blood demons and blood demons. They might even be able to inflict serious damage on them. However, the other party had hidden himself, as if he did not want to reveal his presence. The air around the neck of the blood demon, who was on the verge of death, rippled slightly, and the head of the blood demon suddenly shot up into the sky. Then, the headless body of the blood demon disappeared. Guchang Laozu and the rest had been filled with hope that the Dharma adept hiding in the dark would come to their rescue after killing the blood demon. They waited for a long time, but they did not see the Dharma adept hiding in the dark make a move. Everyone's faces were filled with disappointment. Only Dongwu Laozu and the rest looked extremely calm, as if they had already expected this outcome. Gu Chang Laozi looked at the silent Yuan Lai with some disappointment, and asked softly, Brother Yuan, wasn't that a disciple of your clan? Why did you leave us in the lurch? Yuan Lai's hand flicked out 7 to 8 lightning spells in a row, relieving Laozi of the continuous attacks. He smiled and said, Even I can't explain the matters of the Yuan clan. Gu Chang Laozi replied with an, oh, and did not pursue the matter further. He obviously did not believe Yuan Lai's explanation. However, when he saw that Yuan Lai was calm and did not seem to be angered by the fact that his clan's disciples did not come to his rescue, the doubts in his heart grew even deeper. Could it really not be a disciple of the Yuan clan who was passing by? But what was up with that purple lightning that was obviously much more powerful than the ordinary 5 elements lightning spell, the divine thunder of ice, and the divine thunder of wind? At this moment, more than 10 strong beams of light suddenly shot up from the southern skies, heading in the direction of the battle. Gu Chang Laozi was overjoyed, and he immediately threw all his doubts to the back of his mind. He shouted, Our reinforcements have arrived. Everyone, let's hold these demonic creatures back and work together with our friends who are rushing over to help. We must get our revenge today. Dongwu Laozi and the others moved their lips, and it was unclear what they were discussing. Just as the flowing light from the south arrived and the blood Shura and demonic Shuras were about to retreat in chaos, the Dongwu elder and the other 4 Dharma adepts suddenly took the opportunity to attack together, severely injuring one of the blood Shuras in front of them and forcing the other blood Shura and a blood demon to retreat, creating an opening in the original encirclement. The flowing light beneath the feet of the 5 of them rose up and fled towards the east without looking back. Gu Chang Laozi and the others had actually been on guard against Dongwu Laozi and the others, but the reinforcements were not aware of this. In the midst of the chaos, Dongwu Laozi and the others had the opportunity to escape, and Gu Chang Laozi and the others could not stop them now. Once they did, Dongwu Laozi and the others would definitely retaliate, and the situation that had been turned around because of the arrival of the reinforcements would probably be reversed in an instant. Chapter 686. After obtaining the Na Chuan Cauldron, what level had Lu Ping's alchemy skills reached? Lu Ping did not rely on treasures like the purple crystal royal jelly that could be used to increase the success rate of alchemy. Instead, he simply relied on the magic cauldron, the Na Chuan Cauldron, and the high-grade earth-level red spirit flame to start refining the soul return elixir. One day later, Jiang Tianlin Laozi held the only soul return elixir that Lu Ping had refined. He looked at the gray elixir suspiciously and said, This is the soul return elixir? Lu Ping nodded with certainty and said, This is the soul return elixir. After the blood demon's soul crystal is crushed into powder, it can support the refining of 2 batches of soul return elixir. It's a pity that I only managed to refine 1 in my first batch. Jiang Tianlin nodded and said, I didn't expect the calamity to have reached such a level. Last night, I sneaked into the Yingshan mountain range again and found that the Yinghe, Yingshan, and Daoyu sects had already become ruins. The disciples in the sects were probably all dead or injured. Not many people could escape. Although the strength of these 3 sects was not as strong as the 9 great sects of the North Sea, they were still much stronger than some of the independent forces in the North Sea that had Dharma adepts. However, they were destroyed in the blink of an eye. If the North Sea cultivation world faced a calamity as strong as the one in the Central Plains, I'm afraid that the North Sea cultivation world would be destroyed. Xian Zhuzhenren, who was at the side, saw that Lu Ping had really refined the soul return elixir. He said, These few days I have also read many books passed down by the Yingtian sect. There are some records about previous calamities. However, according to these records, it seems that this time's calamity is very different from the past. Oh? Jiang Tianlin Laozi's expression was solemn as he asked, Junior sister, what did you discover? Taoist Master Xianju said, There are strong and weak great tribulations in the past. Sometimes, only the Azure will wreak havoc, and sometimes, only the devil cultivators will run amok. When the Asura and Devil cultivators appear together, the impact of such a great tribulation on the cultivation world will undoubtedly be huge. After each great tribulation, the cultivation world will need to recuperate for hundreds of years to recover. Jiang Tianlin and Lu Ping nodded. They also knew about these things, but looking at Taoist Xianzhu's expression, it was obvious that there was more. Taoist Master Xianzhu continued. The problem lies in the ratio of Asura and demonic cultivators joining hands in this great calamity. Ratio? Jiang Tianlin and Lu Ping were confused. Yes. Taoist Master Xianzhu said with certainty. From what you just said, the Asura and demon cultivator tide that happened in the Ying mountain range this time has a very high proportion of demon cultivators. Jiang Tianlin and Lu Ping seemed to have thought of something. Taoist Master Xianzhu continued to explain. In the past great tribulations, the number of Asuras far exceeded the number of devil cultivators. Even if the two of them joined hands, it would be good if there were 1 or 2 devil cultivators among the 7 or 8 Asuras. But today, there were 2 Dharma plane Asuras and 1 devil cultivator that surrounded you. Afterward, there were a total of 11 Dharma plane Asuras that surrounded the Central Plains cultivators, Feng Shidao, Donghua, and the others. Every time a great calamity occurs, the degree of destruction is often determined by the number of demonic cultivators. If the number of demonic cultivators in this great calamity reaches the ratio of yesterday's number, then this great calamity might be the most severe calamity in the cultivation world since the 7 heaven-splitting patriarchs. Jiang Tianlin, Laozu, and Lu Ping's expressions turned ugly. Clearly, Taoist Master Xianzhu's discovery and deduction were very likely. Of course. Taoist Master Xianzhu had clearly seen the expressions on their faces, so he continued. This is only one great tribulation that happened in the Yingshan mountain range. It cannot represent the number and ratio of Asura and devil cultivators in the entire cultivation world. Perhaps this is just an isolated incident between the Asura and devil cultivators. Despite Taoist Master Xianzhu's words, both Jiang Tianlin and Lu Ping could only prepare for the worst. Jiang Tianlin, Laozu, looked at Lu Ping and said, I'm afraid you'll have to refine more of the soul return pills. Lu Ping's expression was solemn. That should be the case. However, the difficulty of refining the soul return pill is secondary. The key is the difficulty of refining the soul-devouring crystal. To refine the soul return pill, you must use the soul-devouring crystal of a blood demon at the Dharma law stage. I'm sure you've seen how difficult it is to deal with a blood demon. However, more importantly, demonic Asuras rarely appear alone in the cultivation world. Usually, a demonic Asuras are always followed by 1 or 2 blood Asuras of the same level. 1 blood demon is already so difficult to deal with. If there were 1 or 2 blood Asuras of the same level, it would not be as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Jiang Tianlin, Laozu, listened to Lu Ping's words and looked a little gloomy. Once the tribulation began, it would inevitably affect the North Sea. If it was really like what Taoist Master Xianzhu had said before, there would certainly be many cultivators who would be harmed by the devil cultivator's soul-devouring magic. If Jinling had prepared enough soul return pills in advance, then Jinling would certainly preserve more of his strength during this great tribulation. Hearing Lu Ping's words, Jiang Tianlin realized that he had taken it for granted. After listening to Taoist Master Xianzhu's speculation, Lu Ping did not dare to waste any more of the remaining half of the soul-devouring crystal. The next day, when Lu Ping refined the soul return pill, he used the amethyst royal jelly brewed by the amethyst queen bee, Ceylon, who had advanced to the core forging stage. After opening the alchemy furnace, Lu Ping obtained 3 soul return pills. A few days later, Taoist Master Xiansen, who had taken the soul return pill, finally woke up. Although his face still looked a little pale, the injury to his divine will had actually healed by more than half. His strength had already recovered by 80 to 90%. As long as he carefully recuperated for a few more months, Taoist Master Xiansen's cultivation would return to its peak. As for Taoist Master Xian Chen and Taoist Master Xian Su, with Lu Ping by their side, their injuries also recovered very quickly. In the days after recovering, Jiang Tianlin, Lao Zu, and the others were not in a hurry to return to the North Sea. Instead, everyone began to bury their heads in sorting out their harvests from the Yingtian dojo, immersing themselves in the world of cultivation. On this day, a five-colored brilliance suddenly flashed in the rock cave. The array formation that covered the entire cave suddenly began to collapse under the sweeping five-colored brilliance. Not good! In the stone room, Lu Ping was cultivating and consolidating his cultivation, which had reached the peak of the seventh stage of the core forging realm due to the refinement of the pure Yang soul. Suddenly, he noticed the change in the cave. He hurriedly injected a stream of true essence into the small stone incense burner that controlled the array formation of the entire cave. This caused the collapse of the array formation to slow down. At this moment, in the other stone room that emitted the five-colored brilliance, Taoist Master Xian Chen hurriedly made a few hand seals to reseal the five-colored brilliance. Taoist Master Xian Chen walked out of the other cave and found a few items from his storage magic tool. With a wave of his hand, he threw them into the stone wall. Then, he made a few hand seals and shot an arc of light towards the array formation in the stone wall. The array formation that had originally been dissolved by the five-colored brilliance was restored to its original state. Taoist Master Xian Chen's movements in the stone room caused everyone to come out to check. They saw Taoist Master Xian Chen excitedly walking out of the stone room, holding a five-colored talisman that was half a foot long in his hand. This is... Everyone looked at the talisman in Taoist Master Xian Chen's hand and gasped. A five-colored restriction-breaking talisman. The talisman in Taoist Master Xian Chen's hand was actually a five-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Furthermore, looking at the surface of the talisman that had yet to calm down, it was clear that this five-colored restriction-breaking talisman had just been completed. Originally, in Jinling, only Tian Shui Laozu, who was at the mid-Dharma stage, could successfully create this talisman. Now, in the hands of Taoist Master Xian Chen, who was at the peak of the 8th level of the core forging stage, he had successfully created it. Lu Ping had a look of surprise on his face as he asked, "Senior uncle, you've managed to reach such a level in such a short period of time?" Lu Ping had no choice but to admit that Taoist Master Xian Chen's strength and adaptability were lacking. He was unable to become a cultivator in Jinling, but his talent in creating talismans was extremely high. It was no wonder that Tian Shui Laozu had accepted Taoist Master Xian Chen as her personal disciple and nurtured him to become the vice pavilion master of Jinling's talisman crafting pavilion. There was indeed a reason behind this. Lu Ping had also seen the complete set of restriction-breaking talismans. Within it, there were some records of the talisman crafting geniuses of the Ying Tian sect who had created the five-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Among them, the most talented disciple was at least at the 8th or 9th level of the core forging stage. It was clear that Taoist Master Xian Chen's talent in creating talismans was in no way inferior to the disciples of the large sections. Taoist Master Xian Chen proudly kept the five-colored restriction-breaking talisman in his hand and said, "This is all thanks to the complete set of restriction-breaking talismans that you've obtained. Otherwise I, your senior uncle, would only be able to forcefully create the five-colored restriction-breaking talisman like Master did after advancing to the transcendent stage." Taoist Master Xian Su hurriedly asked, "Junior sister, can you also create the six-colored and seven-colored restriction-breaking talismans?" Taoist Master Xian Su rolled his eyes and said, "Senior brother, it's easy for you to say. If I pass this set of inheritance to Master, I believe that the six-colored and seven-colored restriction-breaking talismans will be able to be created very quickly. Right now your junior sister's cultivation is not good enough. At most, I can only create the five-colored restriction-breaking talisman." Taoist Master Xian Su had already seen the power of the five-colored restriction-breaking talisman in the Yingtian temple. It was also because he realized the usefulness of the high-grade restriction-breaking talisman in exploring ruins and treasures that Taoist Master Xian Su could not wait to ask about it. However, It is not easy to create this 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. This time, if it were not for the high-grade talisman papers that you all obtained from the Tian Temple and the talisman brush that senior brother Tianlin gave me, it would not have been easy to create this 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman. A green talisman brush, about a foot long, slowly rose from Taoist Master Xian Su's hand and danced happily around her. Taoist Master Xian Su continued, "If this talisman brush was in Master's hands, I'm afraid that he would be able to create a 6-colored restriction-breaking talisman on the spot. It's just that when the talisman has more than 6 colors, these high-grade talisman papers will not be able to withstand the immense spiritual power contained within. Only a top-grade talisman paper that is made from the skin of a transcendence demonic cultivator or other treasures that can withstand the impact of the spiritual power will be able to create a 6-colored restriction-breaking talisman." Chapter 687. Xian Zhu Zhenren's 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman made everyone excited. At this time, Jiang Tianlin Laozu asked, "Junior sister Xianqin, I saw that you were able to repair the cave mansion's array in such a short time. It seems like you have gained a lot from the Tian Temple." Everyone's attention had been focused on the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman that Taoist Xianqin had drawn, so they did not notice that Taoist Xianqin had resolved the 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman's corrosion on the cave abode's protective array formation with just a few hand seals. Hearing Patriarch Jiang Tianlin's words, everyone turned to look at Taoist Xianqin in surprise. Xianqin smiled slightly and said, "This time, we brought out a lot of legacy books related to array formations from the Tian Temple. Many of them can be used to make up for the flaws in our sex array formation inheritance system, especially our sex array formation master inheritance. For thousands of years, no array formation master has been able to advance to the Dharma stage. After obtaining the Tian sex array formation inheritance, we might be able to make up for this flaw." Jiang Tianlin Laozu's eyes lit up. "Junior sister, do you have the confidence to advance to the Dharma stage?" Perfected Xianqin laughed bitterly and said, "Senior, after all, my cultivation has already reached this stage. Even if I can use the legacy of the Tian sect to make up for many of the flaws in my cultivation, I'm afraid it's still not enough to pave the path to the Dharma stage. However, after me, it's not impossible for the other talented array masters of our sect to advance to the Dharma stage." Xianqin glanced at Lu Ping after he finished speaking. Lu Ping knew that Xianqin was talking about Hu Lili. Among the 3rd generation of Zhenling, Hu Lili's array formation cultivation was the highest. This time, Lu Ping had obtained the entire Tian sex array formation foundation inheritance, which could be used to strengthen Hu Lili's array formation cultivation foundation. Jiang Tianlin Laozu followed Xianqin's gaze and glanced at Lu Ping. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, Jiang Tianlin Laozu said in surprise, "When did you reach the peak of the 7th stage of the core forging realm?" Originally, after Lu Ping received the pure Yang Soul, his cultivation almost reached the peak of the core forging realm. Fortunately, Lu Ping's heart was firm and he forcefully compressed the violent and pure spiritual energy into his flesh and bones. This prevented his cultivation from greatly increasing due to the impact of the pure Yang Soul. Even so, Lu Ping had only broken through to the 7th stage of the core forging realm a few years ago, but he still managed to reach the peak of the 7th stage of the core forging realm. Previously, Lu Ping had been wearing the stone armor and the 5 elements cloud garment. Even Jiang Tianlin Laozu didn't notice that Lu Ping's cultivation had increased. Now that Lu Ping had returned to the rock cave and the crisis had been resolved, Lu Ping naturally didn't need to hide his cultivation. Previously, when Taoist Xianzhu's restriction-breaking talisman appeared suddenly, Lu Ping didn't think too much about it and left his stone room. Only then did Jiang Tianlin Laozu discover the change in his cultivation. With regards to this, Lu Ping had already thought of an answer. He smiled and said, Disciple found the remains of an ancestor of the Ying Tian sect in the central heavenly abode of the Ying Tian sect. This ancestor's true essence was compatible with Junior's. Before he died, he condensed his true essence into the remains. Junior was fortunate enough to complete several tests left behind by this ancestor. After seeing the remains of this ancestor, the true essence condensed in the remains flowed into Disciple's body. Although Disciple tried his best to control it, Disciple was still able to reach the peak of the 7th stage of the core forging realm. Looking at the others, he realized that other than Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who seemed to be deep in thought, Xian Su, Daoist Xian Xin, and the others all had looks of envy on their faces. Lu Ping continued. Actually, regarding the caves that hid the treasures, as well as the damaged axe and battle axe, I also learned about them from the last words of that ancestor. Jiang Tianlin Laozi let out a long sigh and said, The remains of the condensed true essence, and the flesh does not decay. Presumably that ancestor was at least a late Dharma adept when he was alive. Only then could he have such remarkable powers. Fortunately, you were still conscious and did not absorb all the true essence that flowed into you. Furthermore, over these thousands of years, the true essence condensed in the remains of that ancestor has also dissipated quite a bit. Otherwise, even if the true essence did not burst your core space, it would have destroyed the foundation of your cultivation, and you would not have been able to progress any further in this life. Jiang Tianlin Laozi paused for a while before saying with some emotion, You, kid, are really lucky. The tests that the ancestor left behind and the condensed true essence were probably targeted at Dharma adepts. Not only did you pass the tests, but you also did not explode from the true essence within the remains. On the other hand, Sage Xianxin, Sage Xiansu, and the others looked at Lu Ping as if he was a freak. To be able to pass the tests of Dharma adepts, what level had this kid's abilities reached? This trip to the Yingtian dojo could be said to have been fruitful for everyone. Not only had they obtained treasures and inheritances, but everyone's strength had also improved greatly. Apart from Sage Xianju and Sage Xianqin, Sage Xiansu had obtained the Fantasy Star San and the Flying Sword, which had greatly increased his abilities. After Sage Xianxin had recovered from his injuries, he had obtained a spirit-nurturing treasure from Jiang Tianlin Laozu, the Cloud Pinewood Ruler. This Cloud Pinewood Ruler had been obtained by Jiang Tianlin Laozu in the Central Palace. Years ago, a master craftsman of the Ying Tian sect had found 16,000-year-old Cloud Pine thunderstruck wood from the Yingshan mountain range. He had used the heart of these 16 thunderstruck wood trees to create this wooden ruler. Inside the ruler, there were also 7 treasures. However, this wooden ruler had great potential, and it had the potential to break through to 9 treasures and become a spirit-nurturing treasure. In the past few days, after everyone had finished sorting out the treasures in the temple, most of them were handed over to Jiang Tianlin Laozu. These things were to be handed over to the sect. For example, Sage Xianxin had obtained the mid-grade heaven-ranked spirit soil, Lu Ping had pieced together the complete pill formula for the spirit forging pill, Sage Xianqin had organized several sets of array formation manuals, and although Sage Xianju had not entered the Yingtian temple, he had organized the manuals on drawing talismans, as well as other complete legacy manuals, and so on. However, everyone could keep anything that was useful to them. In Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words, it was not easy for everyone to come to the Middle Earth, and they had risked their lives to obtain these things. Naturally, they had to keep the things that were useful to them. However, the person who had gained the most from this trip to the Yingtian temple was probably Lu Ping himself. Of course, Jiang Tianlin Laozu naturally had the most treasures in his hands. Even the treasures that Lu Ping and the rest had obtained from the Yingtian temple had to be handed over to him to bring back to the sect if they had no use for it themselves. At Jiang Tianlin Laozu's level of practice, there were very few treasures that could be of use to him. Under Lu Ping's shocked gaze, Jiang Tianlin Laozu took out a pair of spirit cultivation flying swords from his storage artifact. Lu Ping's eyes shone with surprise. He raised his head and asked Jiang Tianlin Laozu, "Uncle Master, this pair of flying swords is for me?" This is a pair of spirit cultivation flying swords that have been refined with 7 treasures. Jiang Tianlin Laozi smiled slightly and said, Do you think that among the Dharma adepts in our sect, besides you, who else has the right to obtain this pair of water-based flying swords? Lu Ping chuckled and hurriedly took the pair of flying swords. Then, he carefully caressed the swords' bodies, feeling the undulations of the sword's spirituality. The flying swords in his hands also seemed to feel the rich, pure, and endless inner yuan in Lu Ping's body that was far from ordinary people's. As Lu Ping's hands caressed the swords, the spirituality in the pair of flying swords was instantly awakened. The sound of the swords became louder and louder as Lu Ping's inner yuan entered them. Lu Ping could even feel the waves of excitement coming from the flying swords. Beautiful autumn water swords. Lu Ping had long wanted to obtain a pair of flying swords. 6 of Lu Ping's North Sea 12 techniques. Swordplay techniques could actually be used to perform the pair of flying swords, especially the raging waves hitting the shore and the great river flowing east. Swordplay. When using the pair of flying swords, the power would far exceed the power of a single flying sword. Unfortunately, there were already a few sets of flying swords, and there were even fewer that could adapt to Lu Ping's current strength. Compared to this set of beautiful autumn water swords, although Lu Ping had the flowing sword of the thin water flowing sword, this was a spirit-nourishing flying sword that had condensed 8 treasures. Unfortunately, this flying sword could not see the light of day in the North Sea training world. Previously in the Yingtian Temple, he could only use the golden scales sword that had condensed 6 treasures. This time, with a pair of beautiful autumn water swords that Jiang Tianlin Laozi had given him, it had solved one of Lu Ping's problems. The golden scale sword had been with Lu Ping for the longest time, but this flying sword was currently limited by its own quality. It was extremely difficult to further improve it, while Lu Ping's cultivation was improving with each passing day. The golden scale sword had gradually been unable to keep up with the progress of Lu Ping's cultivation. After Lu Ping received the cyan rainbow sword from Jiang Tianlin Laozi, he heard Jiang Tianlin Laozi say, Originally, you obtained the Baiyang Tower in the dojo before we entered, so this spirit-nourishing magic weapon is naturally your treasure. But now, I need the Baiyang Tower to help me set up the formation in the Yingxi treasure mirror, so I can't return that axe spirit treasure to you for the time being. Lu Ping nodded. In fact, when Jiang Tianlin Laozi handed the beautiful autumn water swords to Lu Ping had already vaguely guessed Jiang Tianlin Laozi's plan in his heart. Originally, Lu Ping also wanted to use this magic weapon to extort some money from Jiang Tianlin Laozi. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tianlin Laozi did not want him to suffer a loss, and had already prepared a pair of spirit-nourishing flying swords, leaving Lu Ping speechless. However, Lu Ping was still a little worried. Martial uncle, this disciple of the Baiyang Tower has already refined it a little. Although it has not been completely refined, if you take this magic weapon back to the sect, I'm afraid there will be some waves. The important thing for a magic weapon like the Baiyang Tower was not for cultivators to use in fights. Jiang Tianlin Laozi naturally understood this very well. He thought for a moment and said, This type of magic weapon is something that our sect has always wanted but could not obtain. Like the Heaven's Cave inheritance and the Spirit treasure, it is regarded as an object to stabilize the fate of the sect. If this thing is taken back to the sect, there will indeed be some waves. This kind of treasure has always been taken back by the sect for public use. But with me and your master here, I think even if there are some objections, we can keep this magic weapon for you. However, although this magic weapon belongs to you, it must be completely open to the sect to be used to cultivate the younger disciples of the sect. Lu Ping nodded and said, This disciple originally wanted to open it to the disciples of the sect. Jiang Tianlin Laozi nodded with satisfaction. He was quite satisfied with Lu Ping's idea. Lu Ping thought for a moment and chuckled. Martial uncle, this disciple has another treasure to show you. Jiang Tianlin Laozi was shocked. He saw Lu Ping turn his wrist, and a long sword that looked like a stream of water appeared in his hand. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression froze. He casually casted a soundproof restriction and sealed the door of the stone room. There was a trace of excitement and shock on his face. He asked in a deep voice, "Sun Hai Sek's flowing sword, where did you get this flying sword?" Chapter 688. The Blue Sea Sect's Chanlu's Sword. Where did you get this flying sword? Although Lu Ping had expected Jiang Tianlin Laozu's reaction, he did not expect Jiang Tianlin to have such a strong reaction after seeing the Chanlu sword. Lu Ping told Jiang Tianlin Laozu about how he had obtained the Chanlu sword in the cave abode. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's expression was uncertain. He seemed to be thinking about something. After a long time, he calmed down. He must have thought about the cause and effect of some things. Lu Ping tried asking, "Uncle Master, is there anything wrong with the Chanlu sword?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu remembered that Lu Ping was still beside him. He smiled and said, "I didn't expect the entire North Sea cultivation world to be deceived by Qin Jian Laozu. Or rather, Laozu saw the right time and made the North Sea cultivation world willingly be deceived by him." Lu Ping knew that Jiang Tianlin Laozu was referring to Qin Jian Laozu's denial that the Chanlu sword was lost had anything to do with him. The dispute caused the entire North Sea cultivation world to condemn and question the Blue Sea sect. In the end, Qin Jian Laozu only escaped from the Blue Sea sect with the help of Laozu from the various sects in the North Sea. The disappearance of the Chanlu sword and the thin water sword became the fuse that split the Blue Sea sect and the Tsung Lang sect for thousands of years. Lu Ping was about to ask about the secret of the Blue Sea sect's flying swords when he heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu say, "The Blue Sea sect has been around for tens of thousands of years. Its inheritance is even older than our sect. In the history of its inheritance there has been a Laozu who has achieved true spirit. However, unlike our sect, this Laozu who has achieved true spirit is the founder of the Blue Sea sect, Blue Sea Laozu. He is also the only Laozu who has achieved Zhenling in the history of the Blue Sea sect." Zhenling had also been around for tens of thousands of years. However, when it was founded, it was a small sect formed by a few unknown itinerant cultivators. After several generations of accumulation, Zhenling was able to develop step by step and finally became one of the famous sects in the North Sea's cultivation world. Unlike Zhenling's well-established sect, the Blue Sea sect had a great reputation in the North Sea because of Blue Sea Laozu. After tens of thousands of years of inheritance, the Blue Sea sect had always played an important role in the North Sea's cultivation world. In fact, although the Blue Sea sect was founded by Blue Sea Laozu, it was more like a backup plan left by Blue Sea Laozu for his followers. Blue Sea Laozu himself did not pay much attention to the growth of the Blue Sea sect. Most of the time, some cultivators who followed Blue Sea Laozu used the name of Blue Sea Laozu to develop on their own. Lu Ping obviously did not know much about the secrets of the sects in the North Sea. In fact, at that time, all the sects in the entire North Sea were secretly looking for Vast Sea Laozu's cave abode. Unfortunately, Fei Ling's sect did not have the thin water-flowing sword, so they could not open the cave abode. Moreover, the Blue Sea sect really guarded this pair of flying swords as much as the sect's treasure, so Fei Ling's sect could only slowly plan for it. Unexpectedly, before Fei Ling's sect could plot against the Blue Sea sect's thin water-flowing sword, Fei Ling's sect suffered the calamity of extermination first. During the extermination of Fei Ling's sect, the Blue Sea sect obtained the whereabouts of Vast Sea Laozu's cave abode. Just when the Blue Sea sect was planning to open the third secret cave abode of Vast Sea Laozu, the long flowing sword disappeared first. The Blue Sea sect suspected that it was Qin Jian Laozu's doing, so they began to hunt down Qin Jian Laozu. After the destruction of Fei Ling's sect, the Blue Sea sect prospered with the spoils of war they obtained from Fei Ling Mountain. At that time, they had the intention of surpassing Xian Ling's sect. At that time, our sect's position in the North Sea was even lower than that of the Blue Sea sect. Naturally, Xianling's sect would not let the Blue Sea sect easily surpass the position of the number 1 sect in the North Sea that it had painstakingly taken over from Fei Ling's sect. The sects in the North Sea also did not want to see the emergence of a tyrannical Blue Sea sect, so they prevented the Blue Sea sect from obtaining the third cave abode of vast sea Laozu. The plan to split the Blue Sea sect was formed at that time. Just at this time, Fei Ling's sect's Zhongxian Laozu, who had escaped from the Blue Sea sect, suddenly took advantage of the fact that the Blue Sea sect was empty. He seemed to have obtained the detailed explanation of the Blue Sea sect's sect protection formation from Qinjian Laozu. As if entering an uninhabited land, he rushed all the way into the Blue Sea sect and snatched the remaining thin water sword. The sudden appearance of Zhongxian Laozu was indeed surprising. With the help of the sects in the North Sea sect, Qinjian Laozu also disappeared after escaping the Blue Sea sect's pursuit. However, the sects in the North Sea sect prevented the Blue Sea sect from opening the third cave abode of vast sea Laozu. The plan to split the Blue Sea sect eventually succeeded. Since then, the Blue Sea sect has been in a slump for nearly 4,000 years. Until now, when Zhongxian's cave abode was discovered, the return of the thin water sword became the opportunity for the Blue Sea sect and Sung Lang sect to unite again. Lu Ping was very quick-witted. Jiang Tianlin Laozi said it so straightforwardly, how could he not understand? So he said with a smile, "Martial uncle, does our sect also have a clue about the third cave abode of vast sea Laozu?" Jiang Tianlin Laozi was stunned. He looked at Lu Ping and said with a smile, "I knew I couldn't hide it from you. Who wouldn't be tempted by the cave abode of a true spirit Laozu?" Originally, the thin water sword was in the hands of the Blue Sea sect. Even if the sects in the North Sea joined forces to put pressure on the Blue Sea sect, they would just be following behind the Blue Sea sect and eating the leftovers. Now that you have the flowing water sword, our sect naturally has to plan well. Jiang Tianlin Laozu and the others stayed in the cave abode for about 10 days before they planned to return to the North Sea. During this time, the cultivators who went to the Yingtian dojo should have returned to the North Sea. If Jiang Tianlin and the others did not return, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. "You really don't plan to return to the North Sea with us?" In the stone room, Jiang Tianlin Laozu and the others looked at Lu Ping and asked. Yes, it was not easy for this disciple to come to the Central Plains. My original plan was to travel around and experience the prosperity of the Central Plains cultivation world. Now is not a good time, Spiritual Master Xiansen said. Right now, the Central Plains cultivation world is in a mess. The Shura and demonic cultivators are running rampant, and the great calamity is beginning to appear. Although the North Sea is isolated outside the sea, it has received the least impact from the previous calamities. Jiang Tianlin Laozi thought for a moment and said, It's fine if you don't want to return. This secret teleportation array needs someone to guard it. If our sect wants to rise, we must have a foothold in the Central Plains. Now that the Shura and demonic cultivators have just swept through the Yingshan mountain range, the various forces and even the demon race have been wiped out. After the Shura and demonic cultivators leave, the forces here will be empty, and it will be the best time for our sect to establish a foothold. Jiang Tianlin Laozu's words caused everyone in the stone room to be shocked, but it was immediately replaced by a burst of pride from the bottom of their hearts. Establishing a hidden force in the Central Plains, and after Zhenling dominated the North Sea, they would forcefully enter the Central Plains and compete with the famous sects of the Central Plains cultivation world. This was something that Zhenling would not even dare to think about before. Even if Zhenling was considered a rising force in the eyes of the various sects of the North Sea, how many people would dare to think about establishing a hidden force in the Central Plains? Not to mention competing with the large sects of the Central Plains. After all, with Zhenling's current strength, it was too far for him to spy on the cultivation world of the Central Plains. What about the Crystal Palace? As one of the 6 large sects of the human race in this world, the Crystal Palace had spied on the Central Plains and inserted their forces into the cultivation world of the Central Plains. They had worked hard for tens of thousands of years, but what was the result? The Heavenly Moon sect was only a large sect in the Central Plains. As the first sect that the Crystal Palace inserted into the Central Plains, they had resisted the Crystal Palace for tens of thousands of years, causing the Crystal Palace's plan to insert their forces into the Central Plains to fail. Even the Heavenly Moon sect and the Carefree faction had formed an alliance, and stabbed the Crystal Palace in the back. It could be seen how difficult it was for the overseas cultivation world to spy on the Central Plains. Although Zhongling had risen, compared to the Crystal Palace, it was undoubtedly like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. How could Zhongling do what the Crystal Palace could not? However, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had thought of it, and so had Lu Ping. The reason why he thought of it was to find a reason for him to travel to the Central Plains. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.